for my time.
This may not be as fun as that.
No. Yeah, yeah, I'll switch it over so you can share too. Give me just a second here.
I saw you in the Cardinals game.
I did. I went down.
That was an exciting game to the very end.
First time since high
Should be able to now.
NFL.
Probably the first time since high school the Lions actually have been season.
No, there was one other time.
There was
Yeah. Very, very.
Yeah. No, I was bummed out.
This proclamation, thank you. This proclamation is intended to call attention to the problem of child abuse and the importance of recognizing and acting on the physical signs of such abuse. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas nationally there are approximately 100,000 victims of child physical abuse each year, and in 2022 there were more than 11,000 referrals made to Montana authorities for investigation of possible abuse or neglect, meaning that physical abuse and neglect of children is a serious public health problem. And whereas in 2021 more than 600 children died from physical abuse in the United States, and at least 2 died in Montana. And whereas recognizing the earliest signs of physical abuse may prevent tragic outcomes, including recognizing bruising that is the most common and visible sign of physical abuse. And whereas the bruising clinical decision rule, known as 10-4 FACES P, can help screen children at risk for abuse by identifying bruising characteristics that have been demonstrated to distinguish abusive from accidental injuries. And whereas the elements of the 10-4 FACES P acronym stand for bruising to the T for torso, E for ears, N for neck, F for frenulum, A for angle of the jaw, C for cheek, E for eyelid, or S for subjunctiva, 10 faces, and 4 represents infants 4 months and younger, which with any bruise anywhere, and P represents the presence of patterned bruising. And whereas the majority of child physical abuse victims are younger than 4 years of age, a vulnerable population whose safety and well-being relies on adults to intervene and protect them. Now, therefore, I, William Cole, Mayor of the City of Billings, Montana, do hereby proclaim October 4 to be 10-4 Day in Billings to call attention to the importance of recognizing and acknowledging when certain bruises and injuries to young children should be of particular concern, and to emphasize the importance of training of adults to recognize, report, and prevent child abuse. Thank you very much for listening to that proclamation. John Forte is with us from Riverstone Health. Riverstone Health requested the proclamation. John, did you want to comment on the proclamation?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Cole. Members of City Council, John Forte, Riverstone Health CEO and Yellowstone City County Health Officer. As you are all aware of the statistic, 60% of our city's crimes are due to domestic violence. The U.S. Surgeon General recently declared the stressors of parenting and raising a family as a public health concern. Your City County Health Department, Riverstone Health, is committed to being part of the solution and offers a wide range of supportive services for children and families. Our maternal child health program provides expectant parents, infants, children, and families with support through the age of 17 through nutritional counseling, parenting skills, connection to health care, developmental screenings, and housing assistance. The Nurse Family Partnership Program serves expected parents and children through age 2 and is focused on using evidence-based approaches to empower families for success. This program is proven to reduce crime, improve educational success, and overall quality of life across Yellowstone County. Nationally, 1 in 7 children experience child abuse or neglect in the last year. When faced with poverty and issues like housing insecurity, children are 5 times more likely to experience neglect or abuse. Largely due to increased familial stress, poor social supports, and lack of access to community resources, which help individuals and families meet the ever-changing demands of parenting. Child abuse is preventable, but unfortunately, we lack the resources to effectively reach everyone, and we must take additional steps to reduce child maltreatment, abuse, and neglect. Riverstone Health and our many community partners are doing incredible work throughout this community, but I know we can do more. This proclamation this evening, recognizing October 4th as 10-4 FACES P Day,
is that mnemonic developed by Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago, which helps medical providers and child care providers help identify bruising and skin injuries consistent with abuse. Almost 30% of infants and young children who had a serious or fatal abusive injury initially presented with bruising or another minor issue with their healthcare provider that went undiagnosed. This proclamation is designed to educate the community, medical professionals, child care providers, and anyone else working with young children to give childhood victims a voice and empower our community to speak about these unthinkable acts happening here, close to home. The Yellowstone Valley Childhood Advocacy Center on the campus of Riverstone Health is a collaboration between medical, behavioral health, law enforcement, and legal advocates, which aims to decrease the burden on the victims of child abuse and helps lead to the conviction of violent offenders. We recently received great financial support from the Montana Attorney General and hope to receive additional funding through the 2025 legislative session to continue this important work. Because unfortunately, the need is great. Our local Childhood Advocacy Center team conducted 163 interviews this year, 119 which were child sexual abuse, 37 were physical abuse, 19 were children who witnessed violence, a dramatic increase, and 2 for drug endangerment. On behalf of Riverstone Health, the Yellowstone Valley Childhood Advocacy Center, I want to thank you, members of council, Mayor Cole, for all of your support and focus on prevention as we work to improve life, health, and safety for everybody in this community. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for you and your staff and everything you do in this field. We'll move on then for some further details about our agenda for tonight. You'll see that the first item on the agenda allows for public comment on any item, whether it's on our agenda or not. But to be consistent with our usual practice, I would strongly recommend that if any members of the public want to comment on the utility bill issue, that they wait until we get to that item and you've had a chance to hear the staff presentation and any questions that City Council might have at that time. I think that'll be a lot more efficient. But if you do have to leave before then, we will allow public comment in just a minute on any topic. Just know, however, that you'll only have one opportunity to speak on a subject. So if you do speak now, I won't be able to recognize you later. We may also have a lot of people who would like to speak. It looks like we do. I'm kind of assuming anybody who's here might be in that category. And because the subject matter of those comments is likely to be very similar, and we'll have a procedure where staff will be able to follow up with any of the speakers after the meeting and get your individual information. I would like to limit the time for making public comment to 2 minutes for each speaker tonight, rather than the usual 3. And that'll apply to each time we receive public comment. In just a minute, I'll turn it over to the city administrator so he can make any introductory comments, introduce our public works staff for the presentation. But before I do that, council, I would like to suggest a rough time budget for tonight's meeting. We only have one item on the agenda, and I'm sure that the members of the public who are here in person or who are watching online would like to see this meeting move along and finish as soon as possible. To that end, I think it would be best if we aim to wrap up our meeting at around 7:30, which would allow 2 hours and I think enough time to present a lot of information and handle a lot of questions. Some questions may go unanswered. Almost certainly they will, but in my opinion, it's more important that we be concise and let the public, staff, and city council members go on with their evening, especially since this is a special meeting that wasn't scheduled until late last week. Quality is more important than quantity in this situation, in my opinion. So to that end, I'm hoping that the staff presentation and council questions can be done in about an hour. Then we can reserve about a half an hour for public comment, and followed by a final half hour or so for any further council discussion and questions and wrap up. That's would be my suggestion for council tonight. The staff presentation has been divided into 6 sections, and I'll allow each council member to ask a question after each section, if you want to do so. But if all 7 of the council members present tonight ask only one question on all 6 sections, that'd still be 42 questions and answers. So don't feel any obligation to ask a question on every section. You'll also have an opportunity to engage with staff after their presentation is done, and after we've had an opportunity for public comment. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. Chris, before I'd open up for public comment, generally on anything not on our agenda for anybody who has to leave on the utility bills, do you have anything before I do that?
No, I don't. I've got a comment that I could either make now or it is pertaining to the utility billing discussion. So I don't know if you'd...
Why don't we wait till we get to that item, then would be my suggestion. So with that, I'll open it up for public comment on anything on our agenda, not on the agenda, or on the utility bills if you can't wait till later. Go ahead. And I would ask that you keep it to 2 minutes if that's possible. Do your best.
3 minutes, yeah. 2? All right. Catherine Card, is this on? Yeah. Catherine Card, 2815 4th Avenue South, Mayor, Council. I read the article in last Friday's paper about several city departments clearing the area around St. Vincent de Paul of the many unhoused people who were sheltering there, or as the reporter termed it, persistently camping there. And I thought, you seem to be, you seem to have used all your departmental muscles to kick those people who have nowhere else to shelter off the sidewalks that hardly anyone else uses. And I can hear the pride in this move of yours when Chief St. John described it as you all doing a full court press against these people, as if you were engaged in a contest with these unhoused folks. As if this was a competition between 2 fairly evenly matched teams vying for some prize. Wow, that's pretty telling to me. A full court press is a defensive move sometimes used by a basketball team that's behind late in the game and feeling defensive, even desperate to turn things around. So you try this sometimes risky move of a full court press, pulling out all the stops to get ahead of what you perceive as a battle to beat the opponent, the enemy. These folks camped out around St. Vincent de Paul are not your enemies. They are not even really your opponents. Most of them really do not have much choice but to do what they're doing, for as Chief St. John also said, where else are they going to go? They, for the most part, are not and cannot even really be your opponents because you are not even on the same playing field as they are. They're struggling with things that I suspect you have little or no clue about. How to find food and water throughout each day, where and how to wash up, where to poop and pee throughout each day, and how to wipe themselves off, how to deal with bouts of diarrhea and incontinence, and how to keep their bags of belongings from being stolen, how to keep from getting into a fight or being raped, how to cope with the ongoing pain in their bodies due to past injuries, including damage to their hands and feet because of frostbite. They are not on an opposing team for you, nor are they your enemies. They have little to no power against you. You are people who, for the most part, they are people, for the most part, who are ill, physically disabled, mentally ill, suffering greatly, and they need shelter. They need a well-operated, year-round, low-barrier shelter where they can be, where they can get the rest and the food and the stability that they need to heal. You all need to work on that. Strategize and work on that, dear council. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? And we ask that you give us your name and address, please.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Dan Wagner. Dan Wagner Homes Real Estate. My address 621 Tumbleweed Drive, Billings, Montana 59105. For the record, I want you to know I'm not here representing the Billings Association of Realtors. I'm here representing myself, my family, and my friends that I've developed over 35 years of business that I've sold homes to. The thing I don't understand is how can my water bill just more than triple in just a few months when my consumption has been the same? I don't understand that part. Concerning as well for my friends that I put into homes that are mostly first-time homeowners in the last 35 years, they qualified with minimal income to get into their homes. And now they're having to adjust with minimal income for exceedingly high utility bills. Hard choices need to be made for people like this, and it's not going to be easy. What I understand too is that maybe that bill has possibly come off of or been deducted off of the tax bill. I hope so, but I've not seen the deduction off the tax bill. And if that's the case, that's what I would call double dipping by the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Any other public comment before we move on to the utility bill discussion? Okay, and there will be an opportunity again for public comment at the conclusion of the council, staff presentation. Okay, we'll close the initial public comment period, move into item number 1. Before we turn it over to staff, Chris, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And I'll be brief. I'll turn it over to Debbie. She's got a statement that she'd like to make, and then Jennifer will get into providing the details tonight. So first, to be clear, I know you know this, I want to be clear, it is my responsibility to ensure that services are delivered efficiently and effectively. And in this case, I failed at that. The buck stops with me as your city administrator. Once it was determined that we could not pull off this rollout by the end of the spring, it should have been put off until fall. That's a hindsight reality. I can't change that decision, but that's what should have happened. Because what we experience most summers, especially a dry summer, really added significantly to this. So I want to be clear to take responsibility for our misstep here. I want to let people know we're taking this very seriously to solve it. And though none of us want to find ourselves in this situation, what I say nearly every time I welcome a group of new employees to the organization, your character is most likely going to be more on display when you make a mistake or you do something wrong, and how you handle that, than when we succeed. Of course, we don't want to fail or have mistakes, but I'm confident with the character of the employees that we have working on this problem, we will be able to work through this. And I apologize to you and to our community that we've had this erosion of trust relative to folks' utility bills. It's very important. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Debbie, and then we'll go from there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So Chris just said a lot of what I was going to say, but I'm going to hit on just a couple more things. There's been a lot of conversation in the community online that Public Works is not taking this seriously and not listening to the concerns, that kind of thing. I just want you to know the whole community needs to know this. Nothing could be further from the truth. We have people working literally day and night to try to make sure that everything is right. Anything that isn't right gets fixed. We really have taken this very seriously and are trying our best to, at this point, try to recover from what has been a very difficult situation for our community. our customers and for our staff, frankly. So this isn't what you expect from Public Works, I hope, and it's certainly not what we expect from ourselves. So we are doing our best now to kind of, as Chris said, come back from where we've been and make sure that we make things right. And we've talked to many, literally thousands of people. And I think a lot of those people would say that they are comfortable after they've talked to our staff. And I do just want to give a shout out to our customer service representatives. What they have been doing the last few weeks, month, has been amazing. Their patience, their ability to continue to be helpful, and everything is just great. So I do want to shout out the customer service staff just first. Also, our community, we have had people call and been extremely patient with our staff, recognizing they've been dealing with thousands of calls. So a lot of our community has been great, very patient, asking us questions, working with us. So I would shout out our community as well. So we're going to get started now on the presentation. As Mayor Cole said, what we're going to do is hit a few of these. We really want to be very succinct in our conversation about each one of these distinct points, and we want to make sure that we get them the questions answered with regards to those things before we move on to the next thing. So these are, and you all got a copy of this presentation a little bit earlier, so these are the topics we're going to talk about. After each one, we'll take just a minute and ask some questions. So Jennifer's going to go into the background and where we are today.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think one of the main questions that we are getting right now is why? Why did you do this conversion? But first, I would tell you that to avoid some confusion, we cannot reiterate enough that all we did was change our billing software. The meter software, the meter infrastructure. Okay. The meter infrastructure did not change. The only thing that changed was our billing software. So the reason that we went out for RFP and wanted to change from our old billing software to the new software was first, the reporting in the old software was not fully capable of handling the needs that we had. Very few reports were available in that system. It was extremely difficult to retrieve data out of the system. And it didn't, we tried working with the old vendor many times to get a service order program that would allow us to do electronic service orders for our meter reps that would order them geographically, so we're not sending our reps all across town on different days. So we needed an electronic service order system in our new software. And one of the biggest reasons, though, was really to integrate with our GIS and asset management system. We have a multi-billion-dollar asset in the water system, and we have to ensure that we're making the right decisions and investing the right amount of dollars at the right time. And we needed the data from our consumption and our use periods to ensure that we are getting good information and data to make good decisions. So really quickly, just go through a quick timeline. The first thing that happened was February of 23, the agreement for the new billing software was approved. We approve water and wastewater rates on a tier basis. So this happened in May of 2023. The 2-year rate increase was approved for that fiscal year, and then this fiscal year that began July 1st. The first billing system go live date was set for February 19th, 2024. So that was basically a year after the agreement was approved. We spent 6 months on a discovery phase where the vendor was getting to know what our system needs were, how we did things in billings, and setting up the system for us. The next 6 months were spent on testing. The testing wasn't good enough at that first go live date, so we deferred the billing date or the go live date until April. In between that time, we did transition the storm fee from the property taxes to the utility bill. That was an ordinance change that happened on March 25th. And so then we had our second go live date go past, because again, our data was not good enough for going forward with a conversion. So on May 31st, the end of May, our testing was finally at 99% accuracy. So we went forward on June 9th with the billing software go live. And then the next day, solid waste and storm fees were approved at that meeting where the other budget items were approved. So after conversion, we discovered the data validation was not at 99% anymore. What happened on conversion weekend was not replicated from the testing. And that is one of the areas that we will go back to once we're through and billing everything in the right cycles and get through this process, go back to that accountability piece as to why and what happened during that conversion to have this data that wasn't quite where we thought it would be. So because our data had so many errors going into it, we had a lot of time where we had to clean up data before we could start billing. We then had a number of other issues, and I won't read all those to you. Most people don't really want to get into the exact issues, but a number of programming issues on the billing software side that delayed billing a little bit more. And again, we were only trying to make sure that our bills were accurate before sending them out. We were not going to send them out with the errors that we were seeing. So this delay resulted in a system that was not operating as it was designed to, and it required a lot of manual manipulation, and that manual manipulation caused further delays. Essentially, we got into this vicious circle of trying to bill, needing to manipulate data, being late, and the only way out of that cycle was the 60-day bills. The first time that the 60-day bill issue came up from our vendor, said, we think you should do this, I said no, for two reasons. One is we have tiers, and we would have to, we can't bill people for more just because we're doing this in the summertime. The second issue was, I said, our customers will not appreciate 60-day bills. And so we tried a couple other things for a couple of days. They came back and said, there's no other way you're going to get out of this. We do have a solution for your tiers. Turns out the tier issue then took another week to get fixed the way we need it to, so that people truly were not getting billed for any more than they would have if they got two 30-day bills. So this is just a quick billing timeline. You can see cycle one, the first cycle of bills. They went out June 29th in the new system, should have gone out about, I think it was June 14th or 15th. So we started out a couple weeks late, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse as we went. The first 60-day bills went out September 1st, and then the next set went out September 20th. We have most of our 90-day bills out at this point, but not, there's still a few trickling through the system. Our 30-day bills, it has an X in there because I was waiting for the end of the day and then I forgot to update this, but we plan to start sending our 30-day bills out next week for the next cycle and keep going from there. So if we could go back in time, we would delay the go live until November of 2024. So delay it till November, the high consumption period is over. We would have to pay additional implementation charges because we'd have to retest all over again. But we would also need to go back and do a couple other things, as we could not bill storm in the old utility system, and we could not bill that new storm methodology that was approved by council in taxes. So we would have had to undo a couple of other things as well. So at this point, I will turn it over to you, Mayor, for discussion on this item.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Councilor, we just start on that end. If you've got a question, I just ask that you keep it to this kind of background subject, and we'll get to the other issues as we move through these sections. So, Councilmember Gillick, do you have anything for us? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Neese.
Yes, Mayor. Jennifer, you mentioned data errors popped up when after you had a 99% accuracy. What type of data errors started popping up? Is it some of the stuff that we're hearing about as far as the error, not errors, but the difference in billing? Can you explain what kind of errors popped up?
As far as the testing versus the post-conversion?
Yeah, after you started converting, you said errors started popping up. What were those errors?
So there was more data inaccuracies than the 1% that we were expecting. So missing reads, compound meters were not working right. The Heights Water District accounts didn't go in as they should have. There's multiple things that happened along the way that they had to correct.
Okay, and I think you said you're going to address those. So those may have errors in their bill right now, and you're going to address those at another time. Do I understand that correctly?
So we addressed those early. That is why we had the delays, is to ensure that we were sending out the correct bills.
Okay, so you did correct those errors so that
Correct.
those errors don't exist today?
Right.
Okay. And then one other question is, when you saw that there was errors that are popping up in that, was there any possible way to go back to start using the old system to continue on until you could, resolve the new system?
There was no way to go back to the old system after June 9th.
Okay.
Let's move on then. Councilmember Owen? Nothing. Councilmember Joy? Nothing. Just to, Jennifer, follow up on Councilmember Neese's very important question. The errors that were found initially, those dealt with, I'm putting words in your mouth, but transfer of data from the old system, the history, whatever, names, addresses, that sort of thing, but not quantities, correct? That's an unrelated issue that we'll get to later?
As far as consumption?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, that's just a different issue. Councilmember, nothing. Okay, so you can move on to your next topic.
Okay.
Oh, I apologize. Thank you very much. No indication from Councilmember Kennedy of a question. Okay.
Okay, this is when we're going to get into what those issues have been and what some of the concerns have been, and I'll try my best to address them. If I don't hit them hard enough or give you a full enough answer, we can talk about that at the end of this. So Jennifer hit on the bill delays. That was a huge issue. Obviously, people know when to expect their bills, or they, after the fact, realize they didn't get a bill. So that bill delay, Jennifer explained why that happened. Moving forward, we will be back on that 30-day billing cycle. Hopefully starting next week, everything should kind of get back to normal. The 60-day bills, we get a lot of calls about that. My bill is very large, and a lot of people still aren't aware there's a 60-day bill out there. So I just bring that up to make sure anybody watching tonight is aware. That is, look at the service date on the top of your bill. Most of them are right around 60 days. We've got a few 90 days out there, but that 60-day bill is important. Again, Jennifer talked about why. The online portal, we had it working, and then in the middle of all this, when the bills went out, there was an issue between the two software packages, and it was most of you that are in more tech, it's a handshake between the two of them, wasn't working, so people couldn't log in and pay their bills. That was not what we needed in the middle of this process, but they did get that fixed. So anybody that has tried to log in and been unsuccessful, you should be able to now. So that online portal was down for a little bit, but it's back up. New account numbers, that's another thing that we need people to know, is there's a new account number. We do have a tool on our website where you can put your old account number in and get your new account number. And so our website has all of that information. But if your number doesn't start with, I think they all start with a 3 now. So if your number does not start with a 3, that's an old number. So we need to get those new numbers to people. Try the online or email, and I'll give you an email later. Send us your old account number, we'll send you the new account number. Service periods for garbage and storm are different. Obviously, we do storm bi-monthly. There was some proration of garbage, and so that has been very confusing on the bills. We will go over that when Jennifer goes over a bill in particular to see how those calculated. But that's been really hard to understand on the bills, with that garbage and storm being a little bit different than the water. The rate increases, that was a 7.8% increase, water, wastewater, and solid waste on average. So if you look at those over there, they're over the total, it should be about 7.8% more. The stormwater.
Excuse me, is that for water 8% plus wastewater 8%?
Debbie, you can go ahead and, if you can answer, go ahead and, but members of the public, you'll have an opportunity for comment. Please don't interrupt the speaker, but go ahead if you can.
Okay, so there's an average 7.8% increase across water, wastewater, and solid waste. So that's an average of all of them combined. The stormwater fee was moved from the property taxes. So the gentleman earlier talked about the tax being moved. You all probably remember when your taxes come out, you used to see a stormwater fee. You will not see that anymore. So it is on the utility bill, and that was a big issue with these bills getting out, that stormwater fee. But that is on there now. That 15% was something we sent out to try to help people kind of do a gut check of their bills. It really didn't work because of the way the May bills worked versus the June and July. So that was a little bit, I don't think that worked as well as we had hoped it did as far as helping people check their bills. We've got better information now in case anybody's been online. There's kind of a step-by-step how to check through your bill, and it gives a little bit more detail on that. The other thing we've heard from people that have called in is that we are raising those rates so that we can cover the franchise fee settlement or that we can cover the police or public safety. State law doesn't allow that at all, so those are not included in the fees, and we just want to make sure people are aware of that. The last thing I wanted to talk about as far as just general issues addressing with the billing is that we are not charging any late fees or shutting off any water. We recognize this has been incredibly inconvenient, frustrating, and so until we get this all resolved and kind of working as it should, we need to let people take the time to be comfortable with their bills and also be able to pay those, recognizing they're larger than most bills have been. So now we'll get into the concerns we hear every day. High usage is by far the biggest concern that we've heard. And we've talked to a lot of people and pointed out that we've produced 29% more water this year than we have last year. That water is going to people's yards for the most part. It was hot and dry. People were irrigating quite a bit. And so if you look at the two charts we put up there, you can see the precipitation over the last 5 years. This was an extremely dry year, very similar to 2021. And then that top graph is a little bit hard to see, but the blue is the average temperature or the temperatures per day. And there's a band of kind of a tannish color that's the average. And you can see we exceeded that time and time again this summer. So very hot summer. We did put some typical usage in here. I'm not going to go over that, but when you water your lawn, it's very easy to get to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 gallons per month compared to running a toilet or, showers or any of that kind of thing. Irrigation adds up really quickly. So that's what we're finding almost every situation is that it's the irrigation that's a little bit higher or higher than what it's been in the past. So this is a good way to check your bill. We have an online tool and it's the bottom spreadsheet you can see there. If you put in your old or your new account number, you can see your usage for the last 4 years for the months of May, June, July, August, and September. So this bill that we're showing just as an example, the usage for the 60 days, the 2 months, I think is 94,000 gallons. And the last couple of years, that hasn't been the amount they've used. 2023 in this house, they used about 60,000 gallons. 2022, they used about 85,000. So it was a little bigger year, but you look at 2021 and they used 107,000 gallons. So it's a great gut check to kind of go back and look at those numbers. Again, on our website, you can see that link. And then meter accuracy. Jennifer touched on the fact that we didn't change our meters and we didn't change our meter software, but I just wanted to add a couple more things about meter accuracy. Hopefully Jennifer can get this video running or I'll just say it. Yeah. I don't think it's gonna work. I'll just say it. Okay, so we have a video and what we were doing was we showed what a meter looks like. And a meter has a little propeller that runs around inside of it. And so as water passes by, it spins. And so AWWA requires that our meters are within 98.5 to 101.5% accurate when they're shipped to us. So Neptune, who's our meter manufacturer, sends us meters that have been tested. Every single meter's tested and is accurate to that degree. And then we do random tests to ensure that those meters that we get are accurate and they're warranted for 20 years. So we know our meters are accurate for 20 years. We have a replacement program that we try to replace every 20 years. So the goal is to keep our meters accurate. That's the whole idea. The other point of the video was to kind of show what happens over time. As time goes, that propeller gets a little harder to turn and they actually start reading really low. And so we don't see meters read high, we see them read low over time. So that video would have showed y'all that, but that's all right.
Can I add one piece, just because that slide was there? I had a question today that someone looked at that meter to the left, if you can go back a screen, and they thought, my meter is not reading. Of course, we know you shine a flashlight or your phone light even, and then you can read that meter to the left. So there's just a special mechanism you need to do to trigger that read. Thank you.
The other thing that we've heard a lot, and honestly, we've said a lot, is to check for leaks. You know, the comment, not everyone can have a leak. No, not everybody does have a leak, of course not. If you look online and you see continuous usage, it's a really good chance that you have a leak, and I'll show you that on a future slide. What our account representatives have been doing is offering it as a possibility. So when people call in and say, there's no way I used 50,000 gallons or whatever that number is, we don't know that. We don't come to your house. We don't know if you have a flower bed. We don't know if you have a really green lawn. There's no way we know what your water usage is. So if you've looked at it and you know your meter, you know your irrigation's not up and you know you aren't filling a pool or anything, then the leak is really the only other thing that you could possibly look for. I showed these pictures because, and you can't see them very good here, but when we say the property owner truly is the only one that knows, you know, in this case, these are a year apart. The bottom one has a pool, it has a greener lawn, and it has a leak in the corner. So Google happened to catch this, but we don't know those things. So our account clerks can only do so much when it comes to understanding your usage. So a lot of times they will offer, we'll go check your usage and just make sure there's not a leak. It does add up. So the other thing that a lot of people are getting is that leak notification on our online portal. In some cases, our meters are not sending that read back to our software every day. So we have one series of meters that, or RFs is what they're called, which is the component that sends it back. We have one series of them that doesn't send it every day. It's kind of sticky. So it'll hold and it'll show no usage for 2 days, and then it'll send a big usage that covers those 3 days. And it'll say you might have a leak because your usage is really high today. So if you have that, it's a series 14, you won't know that, but you can certainly, if yours looks like it's doing that, if you see where you're home and you have 0, 0, 0, and then 100 gallons, 100,000 or 100 gallons or something, call us and we can check that your read is working properly. That being said, at the end of the month, those numbers are correct. It does send it, it just doesn't send it daily like it should. You can go to the next one. Really quick, this is a bill that shows continuous usage along the bottom. If your bill shows that, you should check for a leak. It could be as small as a toilet, it could be a sink that leaks and drips. That continuous usage is a pretty good sign there's a leak. Go to the next one. And this shows that's that bill. So you drill into it and you can see about every hour there's 0.6 thousand gallons, I think is the number. And you can see it's every single hour of the day. So we can help you find that, or you can look online in the portal and you can kind of do a little bit of that research yourself. I'm not gonna go over this, but on the website, there's a lot of tools, how to check for a leak, how to look at your bill, that sort of thing. And this is just to show a lot of the concerns. We track every call, every email, every DM, and most of the concerns, we've heard from about 24% of our customers. Most of the concerns, you've got the bill too high and did not use this much water, about 5.5%. So it's a significant amount of people that are very concerned about that. Problems with the online portal, we have got that fixed now. If you're having troubles logging in, try it again. When will I get my bill? And then garbage and stormwater were some calls. We've had 12% that are non-conversion related. So this just goes to kind of show where some of the concerns have been. And because I'm looking at Councilmember Owen, that is not the latest slide. I added a couple things. AutoPay did continue. AutoPay did not take out previous amounts. It just took out the current amount. So if you had a past of 200 and your current was 300, it would have taken out 300. And then deduct bills have not changed. So if you were on not a deduct bill, I'm sorry, a budget billing. So if you're on budget billing, we have not changed that amount yet. So October, November, that may change, but your budget billing should be the same. So I meant to address those and didn't get them in the last slide. So questions about the issues and concerns that we have heard, any additional ones you've heard that we didn't cover?
If we start down on this end, Councilmember Aspenleiter. Debbie, is this the section, or probably the next one, verification process, where you'll get into the issue of quantity and later?
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
the next
Okay,
one.
so I'll hold
Yep.
that question. Councilmember Joy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to ask, so if a person has a problem logging in, and unfortunately, the constituent said she tried it about 3 weeks ago. So she gave her the notice that the account had been changed and she needed a new account number. So how would that be accomplished? By going on the website?
Yep, and today, we've had some comments that the website has so much information now it's hard to find. So today, it is front and center, log into your account. It is the very first thing you'll see when you go to the website. So hit that button right there, that's the way to log in. Just below there, there is the link that'll take you to find your new account number. So you can find your new account number, put it in there. If they already have an account though, they put in their existing email and their old password and it should take them in. 3 weeks ago was when it wasn't working very good, so have them try that again with the link on the website.
Thank you. And then the second question is, have there been, I guess this is kind of a question, there have been some rumors. Have any letters gone out telling people that their service is going to be cut off?
No, and we know there was a Facebook post this weekend. That was not true.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, nothing's being shut off.
Councilmember Rowan.
Okay, Debbie, I just want to clarify what you said so that everybody's super clear, because I've heard this question a couple of times. For people who are on budget billing, the specific concern that was raised to me is that they pay X amount every month, 12 months a year, but that they got a bill that did not show that amount applied to it. And so what you're saying is that couldn't be because they haven't gotten a bill adjusting to their new amount?
No, so the previous, a lot of these are not reflecting, because of the timing and the way the bills ran, they're not reflecting those previous payments. So it may still show a previous balance. When they get this bill in the next couple of weeks, it should have all that reflected. So if you've made a payment and you have a receipt and you're sure you've made a payment, but it doesn't show up, give it a couple weeks. When the new bill comes, it should all be there.
So for people who are on auto pay and budget billing, they need to just wait and give it another month to shake out.
Right. The next one they get should have all of that captured on there.
Okay.
If it's not at that point, definitely reach out to us.
Okay. Then the next thing, on your slide with issues with billing, there were these sort of lists of false belief, and you mentioned that we were somehow trying to use utility funds to fund public safety, franchise fee, those things are illegal and we don't do that. The other one that I've heard that I'd like you to address just for public information is that somehow the West End water treatment plant is being funded through this rate increase, that there's some sort of overage that's being covered, lots of speculation that this is somehow tied to the West End water treatment plant. So could you just real briefly address that?
Absolutely. So there is a line item on the bills that says West End, and that was put on there several years ago because we had a council member that really wanted to kind of point out the fact that your water rates were going to fund this additional source of supply that we were developing. That is 8.5%. It hasn't changed. It just breaks it apart so you can see what that is. The West End plant is under construction. We have not raised the estimate on that yet. Hopefully will not. We're trying to make that come in on budget. So we have not increased the rates for that West End plant at this time.
And then the last thing I want to address is maybe the trickiest one to address. So you have said here tonight that the meters can't be wrong. Okay, so if that's true, then I think my question is, the assumption that is underlying sort of all of this analysis is the meter can't be wrong and the software isn't wrong. But what if the connection between the two is? What if the way the data is coming from the meter and being imported into the billing software has an error or a glitch in it?
Yeah.
Is that a possibility? Because it seems like there's at least some things that we haven't considered in terms of challenging our underlying assumptions.
So I'm going to tell you the verification process and the independent analysis are where we're going to hit on exactly that. But I would say that we're not saying your meter cannot be wrong. We have meters that fail throughout that's why we replace 2,000 a year. So meters do go bad, but they usually go bad low, not high.
I see.
That is the point.
Okay.
Yeah.
But so you'll get to my question.
We absolutely will talk about how we are double checking each of those processes.
Councilmember Neese?
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, the billings for the Heights went out, I think, last week or so, and so I know I got my bill and I looked at it and I was having difficulty figuring out what the proration was and stuff, and so talking with Jennifer, you mentioned that the prorations are different from water versus sewer and garbage and things like that, and that was one of the concerns I had because I couldn't figure out the numbers because the dates are not on the bill, as well as for the Heights because the city doesn't deliver the water to the customer. They don't know what their sewer rates are going to be because there's not that kilograms or how many, the number you need to be able to figure that out. So I guess I'm glad you brought that up because the proration is not just different. It's not just 60 days, I believe, for is it the garbage or the sewer? One of the two is almost a little over 2.5 months. Is that correct?
I'm going to let Jen talk about exactly what that proration is.
Okay.
Councilmember Neese, it really depends on what bill cycle it's in and when we post the bill. So it goes from the previous bill cycle to the day we post for garbage only, whereas water and sewer are for that very specific meter reading period. So for a lot of the garbage bills that we're seeing, it's a 2.56 months or 2.6 months for a lot of them.
Okay, and I think that's where I think some people trying to take their garbage rate, multiply it by 2, it's really 2.5 they have to do to come to get better, at least in the Heights, or maybe even, is that the rest of the city as well, that they have to do that?
It's for all of the city, it's all the same. And like I emailed, we are looking for some changes on the bills once we get this going and go forward, because I think it would be less confusing if we also had that garbage service period stated right on the bill.
Okay, that's good to know. And then I just want to address, I think the landlord mentioned this when they came in and mentioned how now they're concerned about their tenants actually paying a higher fee because they're paying stormwater and he used to pay on his taxes. So he knows now, or any landlord knows, that they can reduce their bill by $6.36 or 63 cents?
$6.68.
$6.68 a month, and that would actually then make it so that the tenant didn't see an increase in their monthly rents that they're paying. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And then I had another question. I'm sorry, I wrote the notes on this, and I don't see it here, so I'll let
Okay,
Councilmember
thank you.
Gulick.
Recognizes Councilmember Gulick, and I got the signal that Councilmember Kennedy has also got his hand up, so we'll go to Councilmember Kennedy after Councilmember Gulick. Councilmember Gulick?
Yes, one question. Some people I've talked to, the quantity of the water is the issue, and I think we've been able to address it in terms of some people just didn't understand it was 2 months. The others just were confused, and so one of the confusions was that they did see that there was. I'm looking at my own bill actually right now. I see July stormwater and August stormwater is 2 disaggregated ones, but it looks like those are the only ones that are disaggregated that way. The other ones aren't. It's so that there's a water service line repair, $1.30. That covers both months.
Correct,
is that
you
right?
should have $1.30 twice
Okay.
for a 60-day bill.
Okay, thank you. I know you don't have, well, I suspect you have limited ability to room, for one, on these bills, as well as ability to edit all those things, but I think that's caused some of the confusion that some people have, at least in my conversations. So,
Good, thank you. Councilmember Kennedy, we can't see you, but I guess Councilmember Kevin indicates that you have your hand up. Go ahead.
You can't see me? I'm sorry about that.
We can hear you great, though.
You can hear me? Okay. Jennifer, I have a question, or Deb. In Ward 3 up in Cedar Park subdivision, they have been connected to the fire hydrants all summer while they've been doing a construction project. All of a sudden, everyone received their bills in September, and the bill was sky high. If we didn't have meters and we were just putting the water through from the fire hydrant connecting to the homes, how do we get a number?
Whenever there's a construction project where temp water is used, the residents do not pay for that water during the time period because we can't meter it. So we'll check on that and see if there was something something during that time, but they should not have been paying for water during that time period.
Because they sent me their bills and it doesn't show anything, and now September, they have these huge bills, so.
Yeah, we'll have to
It's-
check with the contractor to see when that was on temp water, and then I'll get back to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. That completes that item. So if you move on to verification process.
All right, a little hard to see here, but we'll start with what happens before the bills go out. So there is a verification process that the customer service team goes through. I think we talked about the exceptions before. It throws a lot of accounts into exceptions if they're a high read, if they're missing a read, different things that might have happened to that account that they have to work through before that account can actually bill. Then they review a sample set of bills from our bill rendering that we get in our system. And they'll look at the tiers, they'll look at the prorations, and look to see that everything's calculating correctly for their sample set. And then because we don't actually do the bill images, the bill prints here in Billings or in our software, then they also do another check to make sure that the bill images are what they're expecting. So our billing vendor sends a bill print file to our print vendor, and they are the ones that actually make the bill images and send the printed bills. So for our verification process this summer, the first step that we are using is the same step that we're asking our customers to try first. So I won't go through this in detail, but this account is another example of probably what we see 95% of the time is that it's actually in line, usually with 2021 consumption. This account has, it's hard to see there, is it 67? 67. So it's 67,000 gallons for the 2 months. If you look back at previous year's consumption, 2020 was 61,000, so they did use more during 2024 than 2020. 2021 was 75,000 gallons, then it was 87,000, and then 71,000. So definitely right in line with the historical consumption. So usually we'll tell the customer, at this point, it looks like you are in line with current consumption, and we try not to go deeper just because we have a number of customers trying to get information. And so we're trying to get to the customers that really do have high bills and get those information out first. So our in-depth review for usage that's not in line with historical, or if a customer just keeps insisting that no, they did not use the water that's on the bill, is first we verify the software calculations to make sure those all work. Then we check the consumption against Neptune, our meter reading system, and we check the meter readings and usage against the bill image to make sure that all happened correctly. And then the last step would be to also analyze the consumption patterns that that particular customer has. So this can get very detailed, so bear with me here, but this is the first step. We will look at the tiers first to make sure that those all came in properly. Oops, I was trying to use the laser here and it's not working. You'll have to use the mouse, I think, if it works. But we have spreadsheets set up to calculate these. So in this case, we first put in the service period at 62 days, which breaks down to a service period in months of 2.07. So then down below it calculates, well, tier 1 is supposed to be 10,000 gallons. So for a 2.07 month, it's 21,000. Tier 2 is supposed to be 22,000. That goes to 45,000 for a 62-day bill. And tier 3 would go up to 89,000. So for this particular bill, then we use the full 21,000 gallons of tier 1, the full 45 in tier 2, and then they have just 1,000 gallons that's billed in tier 3. And we check that against the bill, and it looks correct there. So the next step is to check our water calculations, and we again have a spreadsheet all set up to check what the software is doing. It is extra confusing because we did have a rate increase in there, but we checked to make sure that the rates came through as they should, that they're prorated correctly, and that our calculations then match what is on the bill amount for water. We also then off to the side have what's that blended rate there. I don't know if you can see it right there. That is just another double check to see if it's reasonable. So the blended rate for that tier 1 consumption is $4.79. And you look at the rate for tier 1 prior to July 1, and it was $4.35 and then went to $4.87.
And Jennifer, can you indicate where you are? There's a lot of numbers up there.
Which screen do you want to do? It's this screen? Okay.
That one? Sure.
Okay, so.
Better. Thank you.
Sure. Try to go back here. So here's the blended rates over here. And then we have the 435 right here for tier 1, and the 487 is the rates as approved by council. It's on the resolution. So those rates, when you look at, okay, it's for service for only 9 days in June, and for about 53 days after the rate increase, the $4.79, which is a little bit less than the 487, looks reasonable. So that's just a reasonable check that's not in the calculations to make sure that everything's looking as it should. The fixed charge then also prorates out based on the rate change, and then we again check it against the bill. Sometimes they're a penny off, just like this one is, just from rounding issues versus how we have our spreadsheet set up versus how Vertex has their calculations round. Yep. So then the next process is we check sewer. The one thing that we have to do first before we can check sewer for residential accounts is check what their winter quarter average is, because for all residential, the sewer is billed based off of your winter quarter, so that they're not getting billed for sewer that's going into the ground and not coming back into the system. So for this account that we're looking at, go back into our Vertex system, and I'm not sure where the pointer went. All right, there we go. So the seasonal average usage is 3 for this customer. So back over here, we put the 3 in for the WQA, and then it computes down here to 6. And that's because it's computing what those KGALs are for the 62 days of service. So it comes out to 6 for this account. And then again, it does the same thing. We prorate the rates from before the rate increase and after the rate increase, get to the blended rate for this time period of $5.70. You do a quick check. It looks reasonable too. The bill matches our calculations as well. Then we go down to the meter, the fixed charge, do the same thing, run it all through, and that comes out just as expected as well. So the garbage, you can see over here, sort of, it's a little light here, but that is where your garbage billing period is. And that is what we talked about just in the last section, that it is not showing on the bill. It's never shown on the bill. It's just not an issue before because we didn't bill for 2 months. So it became an issue, and that's why we're talking about we need going forward to add those service periods for the different services that we have on the bill. But the billing period for garbage for this one is July 5th to September 14th. So you put in those dates down here, and it calculates 71 days of service. And in this case, there's 0 usage prior to July 1, so there's no usage at that, or no service at the pre-July 1 rate. And then we go down to here, if I can find it again. So no charge for before July 1, after July 1, it comes out to $34.32, and that's based on the 2.36 days of service. You'll notice that our calculations on this bill are 10 cents higher than what Vertex actually billed, and that is because in a normal rounding situation, you would round 2.367 to 2.37, and they round this calculation down. So the customer gets a 10-cent less fee on their bill. So this is the final part where we talk about those fees that are really easy to check. We have the water service line repair fee. We bill that every month to every customer at $1.30. So if your bill is for 1 month, you should have it on there once. If it's on there twice, it should be for a 2-month bill. And then we check to make sure that the Montana water quality fee, this is your sewer fee, is on this bill if it wasn't already previously on the bill. So most people were actually billed in June for this fee, but because of the conversions, some people didn't get it. And this is a fee that we have to pay the state, so we billed out the rest of those customers this fiscal year. And then, like we talked about earlier, storm is on there at $668 per month for residential properties, so it's on there twice for this 2-month bill. So this part here gets into the meter readings, and we were asked to track this back from the previous system bill going forward to the current bill. So we're going to do the best we can here. So the first thing here, this part up here, that is a screenshot for this account in Neptune. So that is our meter software, the software that did not change. Our software and our meters are in cubic feet. So the cubic feet reading for this is the first 6 numbers. So it's 390720 is what that shows there. That's the cubic feet. So I don't remember what year it was, but it was several years ago that council asked us to change to a billing system that wasn't as confusing because we billed in CCFs, 100 cubic feet. And no one really could understand what a cubic feet was or 100 cubic feet, asked us to change it to gallons and bill in 1,000 gallons. So that is what we did. This was done the same way in the old system. So first we convert it to CCFs, it goes into the system, and this part down there at the bottom, that is the old system. It's called City Suite. This is that software. So it went in here as 3907 because you dropped the last 2 digits to make it your cubic or your 100 cubic feet. Then this just shows you where it went into Vertex, and it shows you that 3907 went in as a past read. I don't know if everyone can see that. I'm ending up. So on this part then, we have the first bill, which was in our old system, bill date 866. So that was billed just prior to converting. So it went in at 3907. The prior reading was 3902, still in the old system. And you can see that the difference between those two things is 5, right? Not the 3.74 that it's showing. So what we do is we take that 5 and we multiply it by 0.748 to get to 3.74. Online calculators are abundant out there if anyone wants to check this themselves. So we convert it at 0.748. It goes in at 4 because we bill to the 1,000 gallons, and that is what is on the bill there. So then the next read date for this customer is June 21st, and the 6-digit meter reading in Neptune is 391525, which converts to 3915 in CCFs. So that goes back over to Vertex now, where we're in Vertex, and it shows the 3915. The 3915 minus the 3907 is 8, but remember, that's in CCFs, not in 1,000 gallons. So then we look up in the bill where it says 3915, 3907 is what we're dealing with here. The 8 is there. We convert that 8 by multiplying it by 7.748. And what is billed in the system is the 6,000 gallons, not the 8 CCFs.
And Jennifer, I'm just going to remind you, we're now an hour and 10 minutes into the meeting, so if you can proceed as quickly as possible, that'd be good.
Sure. So the meter reading here is the last one, August 22nd. It's 4,004 CCFs. And then the next slide will show that it goes into the Vertex system as 4,004 as CCFs, just like it did in the old system. And I believe that's 89, 89 CCFs. We multiply that by 0.748 to get to 67,000 gallons for the month, or actually for the 2 months for this bill. And then we look at the bill to make sure it converted right. So we have the 67 there. But the other thing that's confusing people is those previous readings and the current readings, those are converted as well. So if you look at your meter system at home and take your reading on the same date that we read, it will show you the numbers according to what Neptune has. And you do have to do that conversion to get to the reading. If we didn't do that, you'd have readings that would never get somebody to a 67 on the bill. So we convert that reading just to make sure that it matches our usage there in K gallons. So the final thing that we do, if somebody's use is just skyrocketed and we're trying to help them figure out where they might be using or when they might be using water, is we go into Neptune and we analyze their use a little bit more. So for this customer, pretty consistent just about every other day where it's higher usage, most likely lawn watering. And then we dive deeper into the hourly readings, which show that it's pretty consistently from about 3 to 4:30, most likely lawn watering. And that is where most of this person's water is going during these couple of months. So this is a different user that I just wanted to show you. So this is a high water user from an example that we've pulled of somebody that we've worked with. If you go to the next slide, 20,000 cubic feet for July. So just that, if you multiply that to convert cubic feet to the gallons, you have to multiply it by 7.48, and it's about 150,000 gallons used in that 1 month. So we dive deeper and go into the daily, and it's every day. It looks like just consistent lawn watering every day. And then dive deeper into the hourly. But this one is a little bit odd where it's pretty consistent, 5 to about 10 or 11. Lots of water used, but there's quite a bit of water used every afternoon for several hours as well for this account. Just another day for the same account showing how much water is being used. Again, the meters do not register higher than what's going through it. So this is what's being used. The thing that we try to help customers with is how are they using it and how can they conserve more water if they want to have lower bills. So in summary, we have checked so many bills that we can confidently say the software is set up properly, except for the known issues like a few budget billing and the auto pay issues we had. But the software calculations are set up properly. It produces consistent results for every bill that we check. The verification confirmed that the setup is accurate, so the bills are being produced using the proper process. There's always going to be those isolated one-off situations that are human error. We had it in the old system, we're gonna have it in the new system, and if there's an error in it, we adjust the bill, and we go forward. I'll give you an example. We did the storm conversion this year. We had storm having to convert it from the Yellowstone County data, and there was a property that was identified as a multifamily from there that turned out to actually be a duplex. So as a multifamily, they got billed for the entire impervious area of their property instead of as a duplex. They called, we fixed it, it'll be adjusted on the next bill. There will always be those things. But as far as the software and the meters, they are working correctly.
Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Why don't we start back at, well, okay. Councilmember Neese, we'll go this way.
Sure, I'll start. Jennifer, that was a lot of calculating, and I can tell you I didn't follow it very well, so I'll have to look at this a lot. And I guess the only question I do have, because I've looked at some of these, and the data that we see on the daily use, if someone goes into their account and looks at that, is that coming directly from the meter, or is that coming into those? I think it sounded like we convert the data twice, if I understood correctly, from what the meter's reading. What unit does the meter read again in cubic feet?
So the meters read in cubic feet.
Cubic feet, then we convert it to?
So the meter software is also in cubic feet. So those daily readings and those hourly readings, those are all in cubic feet.
Okay, and then and the people are looking at gallons on their report that they log into. So how is that conversion happening?
So it would happen the same way, where it comes into our system, just like we showed you.
This new software system?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's coming in as CCFs, just like it did in our old system, and then it's multiplied by the 0.748, just like we showed you on the bill calculations.
Okay, and so those are so they see their usage, whether or not it's high or low. And I think some of these it's hard to see these numbers, but it was like 500 gallons every couple hours. Did I see on one of those? Sorry, there was a lot of different slides there. I think it was, and their slides aren't numbered, but anyway, I guess the question is, if I've got a sprinkler going in a yard for an hour, how many gallons is that going to throw out there on the lawn?
So it really
a hose sprinkler.
It really depends on how much your flow is. I mean, we had some calculations in the beginning of this is what your bill can do, or this is what your usage can do from lawn watering, depending on if it's 3 hours, 5 hours. We could go back to that slide at the end if you want to see it. But most of summer usage is for your outside lawn watering. I think we've showed you charts before when we talk about why we need different types of infrastructure in the system going forward. And it's typically not for your winter use. It's to accommodate your summer use, to make sure that we have the capacity available, because it increases so much during the summer.
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to put some uses. When you looked at some of these that you obviously analyzed, did you come up with what was the reason why? Obviously, you talked to these people, so what was the reason why they were looking? I think it's 80 gallons an hour, starting at 5 a.m. and then at 12 p.m. they started up at again some. So did you find out what some of these uses were, so we can, if you look and say, well, you're doing 100 gallons an hour, that's probably this or that?
So it really is up to the property owner to be able to say, yeah, I was doing this at that time. We can't tell them this is what you were doing, obviously. A lot of times people still deny even after seeing these charts. A lot of times, though, people are like, oh, okay, get it now. I would say it's, we have 10% that still continue to argue, and that's when we get into, well, perhaps you have a leak. Because there's really no other explanation that we can give them if they're denying using the water as it shows in our meter reading system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Braun?
Thank you. I think I'm going to defer most of my questions for when we get to the moving forward part, because I think that's really what matters. But I just want to say from my perspective, that did not answer my question. And quite honestly, I can imagine that some people feel like we're just trying to sort of baffle them with a lot of data and calculations.
Councilmember Braun, if you wanted to restate your earlier question, feel free.
Yeah, well, I don't, because I don't, my fundamental question that we're going to ask more about is, are we testing every assumption? Because I don't, I'm still hearing a fair bit of, we assume this is true and we assume that is true. And so when we talk about an independent audit or our actions moving forward, which is where I think these questions are more appropriate, then I want to understand, so for example, in this last sort of slide here, where it says, once the software is set up properly. Well, we started this with saying we knew there were lots of data verification errors. So I'm highlighting this so that when we get to the part of the presentation where we talk about going forward, we could talk about, have we challenged everything that we think is true and verified it manually? Because that's where I'm not certain that's been answered yet for the benefit of the public. So Mayor, I'm going to hold questions for now.
Okay, Councilmember Joy? Jennifer, if somebody wants to know whether their meter works properly, what should they do? Is there a process for checking it?
Yeah, there is a process for checking it. A lot of people have reached out and say they just want a new meter. We have a 20-year meter replacement program, so we don't just replace every meter as it costs money. If they want it tested, there is a fee to do that, only if the meter is wrong. Only if the meter is correct. If the meter is wrong, then we waive the fee and replace the meter. But I also forewarn people that meters don't speed up over time. So if you get a new meter, your consumption could actually go up slightly, not down.
Okay, but slightly.
Right.
Whatever that means. Councilmember Asselar? Okay, I think Councilmember Kennedy, is there anything from Councilmember Kennedy? No. So next item.
So I think this is a little bit more simplified process. We understand that people are questioning the numbers. And to be honest, we've questioned them a lot. And we continue to go through this process to make sure that we're confident that they are the right numbers. But if we want to, a lot of people have asked for an audit. I want to show like 4 different ways that we could approach that and have independent people come in and kind of verify each of these processes. To Councilmember Owen's question, like how do we do that? So first thing, I'm going to talk about the 3 and then we'll go into the last one in a little more detail. The first thing is just what we do and kind of have someone from outside do the same thing we do. Pull up a bill, look at the usage from previous years, look at the numbers, how they calculate, and make sure at the end of the day the bill is consistent with their past usage. We can have someone come in and do that. That's a relatively quick thing. It's a relatively easy thing. It does not actually look into each process. It's kind of the black box of this is what's here and this is what comes out. So the next thing, and it also doesn't look at the meter. And so the next thing would be have people go in and look at the meter, compare it to the bills, and then do the same process. Again, these are not delving into each component, each process, but they're basically saying on a large scale, are these right? Do they compare to last year? Do the calculations work? A true audit would be getting someone in here, looking at every component, every piece of the process, the software, all that kind of thing, and truly auditing it. It's probably about a 6-month process, pretty expensive as far as this kind of thing goes. So that would be something we would want to do. We wouldn't get those answers for probably 6 months. And so that would be probably longer than we want to be able to confirm these things. So some of those the other 2 ways may work better. That being said, we put together an idea of what we could do for each step of the way. So the first thing is the meter. Are the meters correct? Neptune verifies them. We check them as they age. Like we said, they usually read low. What we could do is pull sample sets of those, pull 100 of them, pull 200 of them, find a city that can run them on a bench test and tell us how accurate they are. Obviously, we have 40,000 meters. what is that sample size? How long does that take? Do we expect to find anything? That kind of thing. So that's one option we have for that first step. The second step is how does that meter get into the first program, which is our Neptune program. So the meters go to Neptune. We could observe the meter and we could look at Neptune. That's a pretty easy thing. This says this. This is what Neptune says. Yes, the meter goes back right. I don't think people have a lot of questions about that step, so it's easy to do, but I don't know whether that would be very effective or not. The next one is, does Neptune go to the billing software correctly? This is probably the most important one, and I think it goes to Councilmember Neese's question of that conversion. So Neptune gets the number from the meter, and then it sends it to our billing software. Is that number getting over there right? That's a pretty easy thing to do. We could print off meters, or Neptune accounts. We could print off accounts for Vertex, and we could have somebody sit down and go through those and say, yes, 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 no, this is a problem, whatever that looks like. So that's one that we could do relatively straightforward. The next one is taking it from that to what the bill actually is in Voice Cloud. Again, I don't think this is where people are concerned about that. I think once the calculation's done and it goes to the bill, I don't think that's the step that is concerning, but we certainly could. We could do the same thing, go back in Vertex and say, okay, this says 67,000 gallons. What did I get on my bill? 67,000 gallons. So again, print those, copy them, or compare them one against the other, relatively straightforward. So I think if we want to have that independent third party look at that, we could pick any one of those, any 2, 3, it doesn't matter how we do it. And we could check each step of the way. Or we could do one of the first few that I pulled up. So that's it for the independent analysis. We can talk about different ways that we can do that. I think staff is very open to doing that. I think we need to create some comfort level with our citizens with the fact that, you know, the bills are correct or not correct, if that is what comes up. And so at least portions of these, I think, would be good to do.
Okay, questions for Debbie, Councilor Rasseliner? Debbie, what you just went through, those 4 steps of confirming, you know, meters to Neptune, to Vertex, to our bills, isn't that what you guys have been doing in-house, that we just saw that process? You just gave us the summary of it.
Yes, that's what we've been
You're
doing.
saying is just keep doing what we're doing, but have somebody else do it.
Right.
Okay. Councilmember Joy? Councilmember Bowen?
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, when you talk about a true audit on that first slide, you say it's expensive, ballpark?
I don't know that we've ever had anybody audit our software. We could, you're probably talking, what did we pay for this? I don't know. I don't know that we have a ballpark. It's more than, some of these other ones would probably in the order of tens of thousands of dollars. That would probably be on the order of, you know, 100,000, I would say, or something like that to really go into it. So it's just order of magnitude more.
And do you have a sense of who does those sorts of things?
We would have to go find an organization that does that sort of audit. Yeah. That's why we presented the other ones, because we feel like they're more timely and get to the heart of where I think people are concerned about the problems.
So who does this then?
We would have to, I mean, anybody that would, I do it, Jennifer does it, so we need somebody good with numbers that we could give them the data and they could run it. So I think we could find any of our accounting firms that work with us. You could probably find some engineering firms that would do this sort of thing. I think we have a lot of people we could probably call to do this kind of analysis.
Okay. This isn't the time for debate or discussion, so we can do that later, but I'm concerned that we don't have answers to those questions, because I think a number of us have raised the idea of an independent audit for multiple days, and I think we should know that there are people who are competent to do this and who can do it, so that we have a sense of what we're talking about here, because I think you've identified some good points at which we could and should move forward. This is as much about checking for errors as it is restoring the public's confidence in the process. And so I think this needs to be someone who's reputable, someone who's qualified, and I'm a little concerned that we don't know what those potential entities might be yet, given that there's a lot of council belief that we should go in this direction. So I'll hold other questions or debate for now.
Councilmember Neese?
I don't have any comment.
Councilmember Gillett? And Councilmember Kennedy doesn't have his hand up, so we're good. Next item.
Yep, this is one slide, so this one's pretty fast. Communications and actions, so lots of people emailing and calling and DMing, that sort of thing. We understand there's a lot of people that you can use the portal and probably find a lot of information, but there's a lot of people that probably cannot. And so with our emails, we have hundreds of emails right now, basically asking the same thing. Please review my usage. We are sending an email, and we never do this. It's a canned email, but it basically walks through the steps of, can you try to get online? Can you try this, this, and this? If we can get people that have the ability to go online and check it out, then we have account staff that can help the people that really can't. We just do not have enough people for the sheer number of people calling in and emailing. So we're trying to find ways to still help people while still being available for others that can't use some of the tools we have. You're welcome to call. The phones are completely overwhelmed, so you'll be on hold and then get cut off just because we just have too many people in the system and our phones aren't set up to have that long of queues. If you leave a voicemail, though, we get them every day, and we get the voicemails. If you leave a voicemail, we absolutely will get that and call you back. DMs, we're doing the same thing as the email. We're trying to get people to, work through the process with us. Facebook messages, we're going to continue using social media to put as much information and tools out there as we possibly can. We're going to move along to a third-party analysis, as we talked about. I think some portions of that are things that we need to proceed with. And then hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll have the 30-day bills go out. I put on here that emails is really the best way to contact us. You can go to the next one, Jen. We got a few different ways you can contact us: email, our Facebook, our website, and then we have some forms tonight. We got a lot of people in council chambers, and you can write your account number or your name and address on here, and we will put this in the queue of people that we can get back to. So we'll have those available. I'm going to leave this up here while we talk about it, but that is what we're doing, is just trying to answer phone calls and messages, and like I said, move on with the audit and hopefully get back to normal here in the next couple weeks with bills.
Okay, very good. Debbie, can you just clarify where those forms are and where people pick them up and physically tonight, and where they should leave them?
So as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to put them on the back, on the cart that's back there. And I have about 5 pens. Hopefully people have their own pen or can borrow, but I'll have them back there. They can either hand them to us up here, or they can put them back on the cart and we'll grab that stack when we're done. So either way.
Okay, very good. I believe there's a line on there for account number. How essential is that?
We do not need the account number if you put your name and your address. If you have your account number, we're happy to do it. Just make sure we have the right one.
Okay, very good. Back down to this end. Any questions on this topic? Councilmember Gulick? No. Councilmember Bernice?
Yes, Debbie, on that form, are you going to let people know that you've got their name and you're going to be in contact with them right away, or do they just turn in the form and they have to wait? What do you think, a week, 2 weeks? How long will it be before they hear from someone?
We're probably 2 weeks out on the number of requests we have now to review accounts. So we've got multiple people reviewing them, but I'd say 2 weeks would be the safe number.
Okay, so form tonight, expect something within 2 weeks. Okay. And then you mentioned the 30-day bill. Does that mean that those who haven't paid their 60-day bill, they're going to have a 30 and 60-day bill on that, on top of this? So they're going to have an amount that shows past due, but no late charges on that, correct? Okay. And then the only other communication portion that I know I had difficulty with was trying to figure out my own bill was maybe on the water, you can go and get this information, but you can't on the other. And maybe there needs to be better communication on the fact that the sewer, at least for the Heights, there is no number you have to call the Heights Water Department or some way to get that number to figure out your sewer. And the garbage is roughly 2.5 months. And so that people need to know that, because there is no way for them to understand what they're looking for, and their numbers are going to be off because of that. Thank you.
We'll add that to some of our FAQs and information online.
Thank you. Councilmember Rowan?
Thank you, Mayor. Debbie, just a couple of sort of ancillary questions. During one of the last presentations, I think Jennifer provided a statistic that said on average a community has about 10% of the accounts with leaks at any one time. Am I remembering that data right? EPA says that there's about 10%. So do we have about 48,000 accounts? Is that
Sewer accounts 44,000, water is 38,000.
38,000? So based on EPA statistics, about 3,000 or 3,800 people in the community would have, households would have a leak.
Right.
Okay. So one of the things that I'm a little perplexed by, when council got its first presentations that we were facing some challenges here, I think it was Councilmember Boyette who said, what do you need? How can we support you? Why has there not been a request for additional personnel to man the lines to go through, to do intake? I mean, we said, tell us what you need so that we can serve the public. Why are we not seeing asks for more resources?
So we have reassigned, in Public Works, we have 300 people. So we've reassigned a lot of people to do this, answer phones, answer emails, answer DMs. The problem is access to the system. The last thing we want is to have people that don't know what they're doing getting into the system when we want to make sure it's 100% accurate.
Sure.
So we only have 10 or 12 people that have full access to the system. So we have doubled and tripled the number of people that are actually replying to emails and trying to help with online and explain some of the more general things that we're talking about. But there's a limit to I think, how much we can ask people to get in and start messing around in the billing system.
But would it not help if we just almost had like a call center type approach where people were just simply saying, let me take your information, we'll review your account and reply back to you by phone or email? I mean, couldn't we cut the wait times on phone a little?
Yep, so we have a phone tree that goes to a certain number of people, and we've tried to expand that, and then we've forwarded some phones to try to get them to some other people. So we are trying to do that, add just staffing so that we can answer those phone calls.
Okay, let me ask you the same question. Why has there not been a request for more resources just to field the calls?
As we analyze that, exactly what Director Melling said, the determination was we didn't need more people to bring in to train or to get into the system and possibly have problems there. The conclusion was utilize the folks that we have and take the steps that we've taken. That bringing additional people into the system was a higher risk than the return. Now, maybe at this point, that's not what you would see, but that's what we see.
I'm with you. I would just say take the people who can get into the system off the phones, have them working behind the scenes on reviewing accounts, and have an intake process so that people aren't sitting in phone queues for hours or being disconnected, which is even worse. Could we consider it at least?
Absolutely. Part of my look, I guess, is what I've heard from several customers is that they have had wait times from 20 minutes, 22 minutes to 40 minutes and some others. So what I'm not hearing is that everybody is getting stuck in the system and waiting for hours. And so I don't know what the severity of or the numbers of how many people are finding themselves kicked out of the system because they don't get a person on the other end of that line.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Joy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As busy as you are, you probably aren't. Is Facebook a good place to get an update for changes that have been made? Or are you busy enough checking billing to not have anyone be able to really use Facebook for updates? Like if you haven't tried your account, gotten your new account number, that kind of information. How is that working? Thank you.
We do post updates on Facebook and whenever we have something that can be useful to people. What we don't want to do is push it so far down there that people can't find it. So we've actually been very sparing in our use of Facebook lately because we want them very front and center, and we keep boosting those so people see them again and again. So we are active on social media when we have information to add or share.
Okay, very good. Nothing for me. Councilmember Rasmussen. Councilmember Kennedy has a question. Go ahead, Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the areas that you talked about, Debbie, is that area of from the meter over to the financial software and the conversion. I have some real concerns on that, and I would just like that to be in the mix when we do some type of audit. Thank you.
Can you go to the next one?
Okay, one more item.
The real-time bill verification is when we can do an example. We would like to probably get to the rest of the meeting, and then we can always do those kind of walk through some of those bills if we want to after the fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, unless
agree.
you
I think
want
you've
to
co-
watch us
No,
work
I think
through
you've
bills.
covered everything well. We need
Okay.
to, so we're hour and 45 minutes into it. So let's move into our public comment period. So go ahead and make a little line back there. Again, we'll just ask you to keep your comments to 2 minutes. Please do tell us your name and address so that staff could follow up with you and make that as clear as possible. And I just ask that you try to remember that you'll have an opportunity to put your contact information on that form. Excuse me, if I can have everybody's attention. Just remember you can put your information on that form, and please try not to say something that somebody already said, right? So that's kind of goes without saying. So please, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Adam Kern. I actually have 10 properties in town, so I have a little bit different angle than just one bill on stuff. I wanted to say first off, I wanted to thank all the city council members for actually doing a full court press on the bums. I don't want this town to turn into Denver or Portland or something like that. Off topic, but I just want to tell you thank you.
Adam, could you tell us your address or best way to contact you?
I don't know.
And address?
Address 744 Lake Elmo.
Thank you.
Would be the closest one. Again, I'm not going to debate the usage because they keep saying they're right. They keep saying they're right on the news articles and everything else, even though I have all these properties and I can compare the bills to multiple months and multiple years. And all my bills, even on the 60-day ones, are well over 2 times higher than on usage, not bill money, than any month that's ever been on it. Multiple of my properties on the Sunny Valley irrigation, they're on the Heights irrigation stuff. Some are on wells for water, so all they're doing is using their inside stuff. But they'll keep debating me every time I call saying, no, we're right. And they looked up the usage and they say they're right. But I'm not going to debate that. I'm going to debate things that they said tonight, like there's a 29% increase in water this year. They're not factoring in how many new businesses and how many new houses are on the system. And that's going to increase the thing. So it's not a straight 29% increase just for water. And if their system's off, it's going to show 29% increase. And then another question for them implement the system is 99% accuracy. That means 1 in 10 houses is going to be off. If they think that's an accurate thing for Billings to implement a system that 1 in 100 houses is off, that's a lot of houses in this town that the system be off. They need to have better standards than that. And they should have waited till November instead of doing this. They should have done a soft, not soft opening, but soft implementation or something, but they really screwed it on that. And then now I just get a notice in the mail on one of my properties that's a 90-day bill. So they're not just doing 60s, now they're pushing 90 days out from the city. I mean, that's a joke if they can't do this system in 60 days, let alone now it's in 90 days. My biggest issue is their system. And one of the biggest things on the issue is just like you call in there and the person that you call into on the number on their thing, it won't even go through, But I have multiple properties. They don't show the address on the bills at all, so you don't even know what house you're looking at. And then when you go into the system, log on, I talked to Ed about this. When you go into the system, log on, there's only one button that says Pay Now. And you have to click on Pay Now. You can't even look up your account. You have to pay on Pay Now. And then on the system, you have to type in your last name first and then first name. So a lot of times, it took me multiple times trying to figure out the system just to get look up an account. So every single one of my 10 accounts, I got to type in my account number, then I got to type in last name, then first name, and look it up. It's a joke that the system can't recognize Adam Kern. It has to be Kern, Adam, just to find your thing in the system. And why can't I have multiples on my account? I have to look up every single one separately to look it up. I mean, Montana Power, Northwest Energy, that's all great. But this current system, like now when you click on the past invoices, you can't even look at the past invoices. It says, sorry, not working, try again later. I did this all on Friday, so I had current records on all this stuff. You click on view invoice, it says it can't pull it up. And their system doesn't, some of them aren't even showing usage of gallons on the properties. This is a joke. And it just really frustrates me that somebody can just pick a system, it's not voted on, they implement it, somebody's getting a kickback to use this system, and now the whole thing failed, and they're overcharging us, but they're gonna say all day long that they're not overcharging us.
And Adam, your time is up, so.
Yeah, but I'm going to say real quick.
Very helpful, thank you very much.
If the city's not going to discount from the service company that's providing this to lower rates, that's a joke. And since he took full responsibility, I think he should be fired for this.
Very good, thank you. And I'll just remind people, We won't get into a dialogue. I know that can be frustrating, but with this useful input and your address, then we have a way to get back to you. So go ahead, Councilmember.
Hi there, Rich McFadden, 619 Terry. I believe that's out in Ward 3. And I just wanted to, reassure some people who have asked me, and I think Ed might have touched upon the subject. Now, nobody's going to actually get their water shut off if they're making progress towards paying up their bill, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that a lot of people need to maybe be reassured of that nobody's going to come out in jackboots and shut down their water as long as they're, making a reasonable effort to get their bill paid up. All right? Ed, was that something you commented on? Okay, but yeah, so anybody making a reasonable effort is not going to get their water suddenly shut off or anything. And sooner or later, the city will get things back to normal, correct?
That's the plan,
All right,
for sure.
so yeah, I just thought, everybody in town should be kind of reassured that the city is not incompetent and the city is on top of this, and nobody's going to get their water suddenly shut off as long as they're, making an effort to get paid up.
Very
all right?
good. Thank you.
Are these people sick or are they just chickening out?
No, it's a work session and it's one straddling, but we have 3 or 4 people out sick.
Okay, I noticed you were short of 2 people. I thought maybe it's because you had a tough subject.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor
That's
and
it.
City
Thank you.
Council.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Tom Zerboen, 1747 Wicks Lane. Yes, I buy my water from Heights Water. And no, I haven't received a utility bill from the city for solid waste, sanitary sewer, or stormwater in almost 3 months now. And I better get a quantity that my sewer's based on the bill. Now, I do get around town, and I have looked at 6 people's bills who buy their water from the city. Every one of them's bill has a line on it that says meter reading. And when you look at it, the meter does not read anywhere as close to that, because as you know, the meter reads in cubic feet and the bill shows gallons. That's a flat lie, because that's a calculation. A meter reading should be something you can go look at your meter and verify. How do you know if you have a leak when you've got 2 systems? You got nothing. Next, state law and city code requires the city council sets all utility rates, not staff and a vendor. You have set rates for monthly rates. You have not set a 60-day rate nor a 67.56-day rate. You have set monthly rates. Your contract with every single user says you will bill monthly and they will pay monthly. That's not happening on a 60-day bill. When you can't read meters, everybody used to send a bill with an estimate on it. This city can't even estimate. And now they're claiming everything is factual with 110 excuses. This is wrong. You're violating the law. Your city administrator is allowing it to happen. You are allowing it to happen. Now you know it. You took an oath to uphold city code and state law. You should fire him. When somebody gets fired, things change really quick because the next man or woman doesn't want to be fired. If you can't do your job, all of these upset people should start recall and recall every one of you. Things will happen when people lose their job.
Very good, Tom. And Debbie and Jennifer, we'll give you an opportunity later if you want to comment on any, but so you might keep a list if you want to on any of these. Sir, next.
Hi, my name's Anthony Rowery, 2115 Vesco Way. I'm sitting here, I got 2 bills in my hand, one for June, one for July, August. It's got, one bill's got my June usage at 27,000 gallons, and the other bill's got it at 42 June, same month, 42,000 gallons. That's where I'm not trusting the system right now. And anyway, that's just where I'm going to leave it at right there, is where I've got 1 month and the city's telling me I have two different amounts that I used. I'm a single guy, got my own house. I'm running 3 zones instead of 4 zones on my sprinkler system this year, and my usage is up. I don't understand it.
Thank you, sir. And please be sure to fill out the form so they can follow up.
My name is Charles Clark. I live at 519 Cook Avenue. The one thing about calling, I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning because I have to go to work, and I do not want my intelligence insulted. I would not be wasting my time here. I've lived in my house for 4 years. The same thing, I water the same way all the time. Not once have I had a leak. I called there, got hung up on 4 times. No one ever said anything. And then when I finally get a hold of somebody, you've got a leak. Click. They're not going to sit here and tell me it doesn't happen. All of us would not be here if that was the case. So they say they bill me $92.65 for last month's bill. But according to this, I didn't use any water. Then I get the other water bill, and I used 40,000 gallons of water. 40,000 gallons. You have any idea how much water that is? I lived in the same spot, the same way, every month for 4 years. My water bill has never, ever been over $100. They said they're going to have a double bill. Okay, I'm thinking $200, $411 for doing the same thing I've been doing for 4 years. 4 times the amount is absolutely ridiculous. I haven't changed anything. All I hear are excuses. No one can give me a straight answer. I've called, no straight answer. All I want is an answer to the question. What they're doing is wrong. You bill me for something that you say I didn't use, but then the next month you bill me 4 times. That's what's happening. Some of these poor people can't even pay their rent now. Have anyone really paid attention to Facebook? Auto paying $800. Some poor lady can't even pay her rent now. $400. This is astronomical. Something's got to get done. Something's going to have to happen.
Please make sure you fill out the form so we got your address so they can follow up more specifically. Go ahead. Next.
Hi, my name is Avery Johnson. My address is 1517 Colton Boulevard. And I just have one quick question. When given the opportunity to look at many discrepancies that were discovered in several customers' online billing accounts, can you tell me the reason as to why you declined to look at the data with the local resident who identified the discrepancies? Did that make sense? No,
I'm not sure we understand.
Okay. So we have found some data with 10 people's accounts, and you were asked to look at that data with a resident, and they declined. I just want to know why.
What was the address?
1517 Colton.
That's your property that you're talking about?
Correct.
1517 Colton.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know the background enough, so we can't really have a dialogue, but with that address,
Yes.
somebody.
You guys wouldn't have a background because you probably weren't aware, but Andrea asked you to meet, and it was declined, and I just want to know why.
Yeah, and our staff later, when we're done, will comment if they actually know your situation, fine, but with 40,000 units, we'll have to follow up later, probably. Okay, thank you.
My name is Jennifer Clatty. I live at 747 Briar Place. I am here to talk about the water bill I got on September 24th for a 2-month billing cycle. My bill was $1,016.95 for a purported use of 136,000 gallons of water. I've lived in the same house for 6 years. My sprinkler systems are on the same settings they've been on for all of those years. I have no leaks. I know exactly how fast my sprinkler system uses water because the city challenged me on that previously when I've had problems with my bill. I know exactly how much water is going out my pipes. I know exactly how much water is coming in my pipes. I've got a child I've got a grown child who is an engineer. I've made very good use of his schooling, trying to figure this all out. So to put this in perspective, what I have figured based on what's coming in and what's going out, I use in the winter about 6,000 gallons. In the summer, my use should be about 24,000 gallons with my sprinklers running. So 68,000 gallons is a little high for me. Give you an idea, that's 101.2 gallons an hour. Every hour of the day, that's a gallon, 1.69 gallons a minute, every minute. This is the equivalent of 5 semi-trucks full of fluids, just for my yard. It's 10.5 swimming pools full of water every month. So thinking about those numbers realistically, there is absolutely no way, unless my basement was completely flooded every month with 8 feet of water, or I had a moat around my house, or I lived in the Everglades, that this is possible. And if it's happening to me and 2/3 of the rest of the city, then there's an issue. And I'm calling crap on the fact that there is no problems, there are no issues, there are no leak, everybody has a leak. I don't buy it. I want an audit. I want the city to be paying back some customers, myself included, and I want some accountability. All the way to the top gentleman, all the way to the mayor, all the way to Miss Debbie.
Jennifer, what was your last name again?
K-L-A-T-T-E.
And Briarwood Place, what was the address?
747 Briar Place.
747. Again, please be sure to fill out a form so they've got a written copy, I'm sure. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. My name is Andrew Lopez. I live at 621 Mecca Drive in the Heights, just off Aronson. And just coming back to the bills and the new updated system that has been a bunch of hoopla, if we can all agree. When we called in June, my wife had called and asked for the new bill and whatnot coming on, and they said, well, we're going through a new system. We don't know your account number. We had the account number. We gave them the account number. They go, we don't have that in our system. We'll have to get back to you. They got back to us. We got a new bill. And I looked at it, and I water by sprinkler system, my hand. And normally in July and August, I have it pretty readily going because it's hot and I like my grass green. With the bar graph that they usually issue us on these bills, I can go back years because I do save my bills, and sometimes I don't. My wife has them, and we go and I look at them and I go, okay, this is consistent. This is consistent. It's usually $110, $150. Sometimes it goes to 200, which is, I agree, because I get forgetful. We're all human. We make errors. So I'll leave it on an additional amount of time. Well, coming to the new bill, the 60-day bill that these ladies and this gentleman here is introduced to get more money, I don't know how. My graph is totally different. This is from 5/23 to 6/21. And in July and August, you can see the graph stating 8 to roughly 11,000 gallons of usage. Okay, now on the 6/21 through 8/22 of this year, my graph states July and August are nil. There's no marking whatsoever on there. But yet, the September through June of the last year coming to this coming months is consistent with the graph that I have on here. Now, this bill, like I said, is from 6/21/24 through 8/22/24. My bill date is due 10/7. September has 37,000 gallons of water that I've used. And I can tell you that I've turned on my sprinkler 3 times in September. We had perfect, nice weather. Didn't need it. My grass was green. Did not need it. So I just don't understand that. If I could address these to you so you can actually see the discrepancies, I really wouldn't like these ladies to, because they're just going to give me some hoopla. Definitely don't want this gentleman to do it. But
Sir, your time is up, but I think you'll probably address how to read those graphs because.
Oh, I know how to read them. They say right here, July and August, 0.
Yeah.
July and August of the month before their system,
And
it
that's
says
misleading.
8 to 12,000 gallons.
You're right, that's misleading, and so we'll have some information on that later.
All right, well, thank you for
Because
your time.
mine was the same way. Go ahead, next.
Yeah, my name is James Hawkins, 2121 Maricela in the Heights. And I'd like to thank the City Council for giving us the opportunity to talk to you, and specifically Ms. Owen, Mr. Neese, because you seem to kind of hear what we're saying. You kind of relate to some of the issues that we're having. I think there's been a lack of confidence generated here because of the way this was done. And also because my July and August bill has no meter reading. But my bill for July last year was $72, nothing's changed. My bill for August was $118. My combined bill for those both 2 months this year is $491 with no usage disclosed. And so I think, and something I might suggest, I don't know if it's capable of working, why don't we go back to the old system we had and have them run the bills for July and August and see what they read in comparison to the new software that you just ran, where it's giving everybody exorbitant bills, and see what the difference is. I'm sure they still have the old software that they have, that they ran it on. Why don't we try that? Why don't we compare the two? Run the old system, see what it reports, and then look at it against the new one. That would identify right away that there's a problem with the new software, right away. But I really think that's the problem. There's a lack of confidence now, specifically when she states that there's so many calls coming in. I tried calling in twice last week, couldn't get through either time. I tried to go to the website to see what my usage, it just blanked out. There's nothing there. So when it comes to basic disclosure from a utility company to the people that they're servicing, we can't even get the information. We don't even know what we used. We just get a bill with a dollar amount. And that's a lack of credibility on their part, totally. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Billy Strissel, and I live at 3323 Harlow. That's up in Wilshire Heights, and so my house is kind of goes into the bottom of the rims. So my patch of grass that I have is about that size is all. I've looked back for 2 years and that I can find, and the highest bills was $90 or 80 something. So now I got a bill for almost $600 for two months. And I don't know why. So I've had 2 plumbers come in. I even called the outfit that does the sprinkling stuff, had them go through everything. We've been outside, we've been all through the house. Can't find a leak if there's a leak. So I don't know what to do, you know. I guess that's why I'm asking them why is my bill this high? So that's my concern. So I don't know. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very good. And just make sure we get your name and address. Be sure to fill out the form and leave that so they have that, please.
Good evening. My name's Tanya Schulitz. I'm at 2031 Country Manor Boulevard, and I'm not going to bitch about my bill, but I am going to offer some advice. On the testing, your verification process that was described tonight and has been described to me online never seems to go out of the office. You're comparing Neptune to the new software, and that's cool, but are you going out and looking in somebody's yard or wherever the heck the water meters are to validate that, and then doing all that conversion of the math? I believe that was one of Debbie's options, was a full end-to-end process, and I think any good troubleshooting software or any good troubleshooting method would tell you to do that. So hopefully they will. Incidentally, 3,758 statements would be statistically significant to prove out 44,000 users. So that was another question Debbie had, and that would give us a 99% accuracy rate. I'm also questioning, and I think a gentleman did before me, the history. The import of the history is what confounds me. It doesn't match, as he talked about his graphs. As I look at my past usage with all of the tools online, I'm not making heads or tails of it. And then I feel for the call center reps. They're probably getting abused. You know, they're getting screamed at. Chris asked, what is the magnitude? I would suggest you check the abandon rate. Look at the abandon rate in your call center and you'll see the magnitude. Look at your average handle time and look at your average calls on hold. And then if you need help, Harlan Clark provide supplemental call center concierge service that could take messages, as was one of the suggestions, take messages and at least make the citizens feel heard. And ultimately, I would ask that Jennifer and Debbie listen to Ms. Owen. I think she gets it. I feel like she's really listened and has some good ideas. So thank you for allowing us to speak.
Very good, thank you. Next.
Good evening. I'm Christine Stovall, and I'm at 3509 Macduff Circle. My bill has been from 73 to 780. I had a leak the last year. I had that fixed. I had no water on in the middle of August, all of September. So I don't understand why, if I have no water in my lawn, and specifically if I've had my water and I have a sprinkler system and I use the exact same amount of water every year, which she said it's increased. No, my water consumption has not increased. Actually, I've been living at another place that I own, and my water has gone down. So for my water to be at $79 and up to $780 with less, there's something wrong. And she said, well, we went on, this system goes on what has been used in the past. So that's what we're basing it on. Okay, if I had a leak last year and it's fixed this year, I should not be charged for the same price this year, as I was last year. And you stated that in your graphs you have. There's so many issues that, and I believe Miss Owen is the only one that has listened to and addressed this situation. Are you a owner that's been affected too? A consumer? Has no one else been affected by this? Just Miss Owen? I mean, it seems like everyone's skirting around the issue, especially Public Works. They won't answer a question. They just try and make it seem like, well, this is why. No, you're not listening to the customers. You're going back. We are right. You are wrong. Well, so many other people say you're wrong. So I suggest it be fixed. If it's an audit, I bet you about if what you are charging all these customers, I imagine there's probably 15 total that would pay that audit, what you're charging. So if you have 40,000 people on, I'm pretty sure we can afford it, or you can afford it, to get an audit paid for. And I appreciate every one of you here, but you have to look at the normal questions that we are asking and not go up here and not go down here, but listen 100%. And I appreciate you very much for listening and responding. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And again, be sure to fill out the form. Next.
I'm Georgia Geigel, and I live at 416 South 35th Street. I would like to comment on Billings utilities completely. I feel this all started with the garbage. We were doing well with our garbage cans of 300-gallon garbage. On my street, it's all duplexes. I had 3 garbage cans that were 300 gallons. And you couldn't find a gum wrapper on the street or in the alley. And then they went to the 90-gallon, and of course I complained and brought that up to the utilities more than once and several times. And we got 20 now, 20 garbage cans in our alley. There is constantly dumping of chairs, windows, garbage cans, beds. I did get a hold of somebody after going down to the utilities and saying, there is a problem here, I'm getting dumped on. And they gave me a name of the guy that did the solid waste. I called, well, I left a message. He did call back, which was great, and told him what was going on. He said, oh, I'll have somebody there Monday. Well, I called him Thursday, and yes, one bed was picked up on Friday. So there's the start of your problem right there, where Billings is going to have garbage everywhere. Then we go to the water situation. The situation of everybody's bill have went up. My street is all sprinklers, but I happen to have wells on my properties. I have 3 properties. So my bill doubled, which is probably your rate increase, but it just seems terrible that the bills aren't coming out once every 3 months or whatever. I have a neighbor that's 94 years old. Her and I went down to the public building there for water. There was 8 people in line. The gal in front of me said, my bill's normally $58 and it's now over 500. And everyone was that way. Why should my 94-year-old neighbor have to go find out what her bill is? And we paid our bills then, which was part of September, and we still haven't gotten bills again. So it's really crazy that, first of all, we don't know what we're paying. Second of all, how much is it going to be? And as far as an audit, I think an audit is a great idea. I think there's a problem in the administration in the public works. I really do. And that should be checked into very deeply. And other than that, you can either keep charging all these people double, triple, or more for water or sewer or dumps, or you can give us a sales tax for the city and pay for it that way. And the property owners cannot keep paying increases. And I don't know where the marijuana bill went or any of that, but the money doesn't seem to be there. So we keep getting charged or mill levied into another charge. So that's my complaint.
Very good, thank you. Next, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Terry Kranz. I live at 4113 Phillip Street. I've lived there for 35 years. My daughter lives 2 blocks down the street, and she's lived there for about 15 years. Like the first gentleman who spoke, I'm also a landlord. I have a rental house in the same neighborhood. I also have family in the same neighborhood that have lived there closer to 45 years. Between my house, my daughter's house, my rental house, 2 of those 3 properties have irrigation wells. One of the things I'm going to say is that it feels like the response that we've gotten has been talking points and not necessarily addressing the real issues. And one of the talking points is, well, you know, people are just watering their lawns more. In my case, my daughter's case, and 2 of the other houses, they are all well irrigated. Another thing I'm going to bring up is I also have a daughter that lives on the west end. She had a legitimate irrigation leak, so they turned their water off, fixed the leak, and since their lawn was really dry, they watered every day. They told me for about 3 weeks, and then they watered every other day since to get their lawn back to healthy. Their water bill tripled. My daughter, who lives 2 blocks from me down the street, that waters with her well, 5 times its normal amount. Mine is 3 times its normal amount. My renter's is about 2.5 times the normal amount. So one of the questions that I have is, are we mapping people who are complaining where they live? Are we looking for commonalities? Are we looking whether or not there's a regulator on their line, whether or not they have fluctuating line pressure? With a positive displacement flow meter, and I do believe they are positive displacement in Billings, if you have an increase on your line pressure, you will see an increase in flow with the same habits. So if you water your lawn for an hour, you'll use more water with more line pressure. So you could see exactly what we're seeing here. And I'm curious whether or not we're looking into any of that. There were watering restrictions in 2021. I'm curious, I did not see any watering restrictions in 2024. Is there any kind of records as to how much water the city is putting out? Are they looking at different usage in different zones? And then it was mentioned tonight that 25% of the customers have complained this year. I'm curious what the normal complaint percentage is. And finally, I do want to add and point out, I have worked with Christina Fox, Scott Emmerich, Louis Ingalls, Calvin Crum. They've all been very helpful and professional. They gave me some information today. I've not had enough time to review it, asking about some of the water pressures. I'm specifically going to emphasize Christina Fox. I went down to the Belknap Center and with 5 bills, and she went through every one of them with me, took whatever time I needed to understand what was going on. So I think that she deserves a really big compliment. Thank you. So, and thank you guys for listening.
Very good. Thank you. Next.
Hello, Elizabeth Shoemaker, 909 8th Street West. So I'm a real estate broker, and I sell real estate, so I get to hear a lot of these type of complaints. I'm not going to go off on my own, but I will say that my bills are normally between 60 and 90, and my last bill for the month of August was 200. So it's just a matter of budgeting for most people in this town, and our property taxes have increased 30% along with that. So not only is the cost of our living expenses go up and our housing expenses are going up, but we don't know how much to budget. So that's a big major problem for a lot of people, especially on fixed incomes. And so, the state, they did a rebate situation where they gave back some money to us for those increases in taxes. And I wanted to propose that that might be a solution to your increase on the 15%, which coincided with our bills going up. And we did not, I think the major concern here is the lack of transparency in regards to not being able to look at our bills and seeing where our usage was at each for 2 to 3 months during the highest usage months of the year. I think that creates a huge problem, like I said, lack of transparency. And, we just had no way to track that. Whereas, now we're obviously seeing some problems with the numbers that a lot of people are seeing in their usage. So let's see what else. I'm on board with an audit. I think not only an audit just in the systems, but in the business administration aspect. This is a public situation that we are all paying for, and we're forced to pay for it. So therefore, I think we should be made aware of what those costs that are incurred and where our money is going. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Carl Decock, 337 Future Circle. I guess I'm just, because I know there was a lot of comments that were made, I don't want to reiterate everything, but I think timing was bad. I think doing it in the middle of summer when everybody's bills are already high was probably the worst timing to do it. I saw the same thing as far as I got in the system, was able to log in, everything was working fine. I'd love to know how to dig into some of those daily details because I couldn't find that, and I'm pretty internet savvy, still couldn't find all that. Because I want to trust the system, but I've been in the same house 9 years. I know I use more water this summer. Not having a bill to be able to kind of check myself was probably not spectacular. But I checked back into 21, checked into 22, and none of them compare to what I'm seeing now. The other thing is when I look at the last 2 bills that I had, I'm even seeing discrepancies here where it is showing the July and August blank, and I understand that. But when I look back at the June bill, it shows on here 19, and then I see the next month's chart, and it's showing it at 29, or somewhere in there. I mean, none of the stuff is matching up. And then the backup information that shows, I guess the usage actually registers a number for July, which on the other chart, it shows that it's 0. So there's just a lot of confusing information and it doesn't all add up. Combine that with the fact that the bill was, I would say, probably double what I would have expected. It's just really difficult to follow. And so even just being able to find some of the additional information that was shown tonight would be really helpful. Because again, I want to trust it, but I shut off the auto pay because in all honesty, I'd rather be the one in control of whether the money goes out or not versus having to fight to get it back.
Very good, thank you. You've heard me say it before, please feel free to, or please do fill out the form so we get the accurate names and contact information. Sir.
Good evening. My name's Kurt Zigman. I live at 1695 Viewcrest Drive. I won't need 2 minutes. My question has been asked. Why am I getting charged for water I did not use? I'm a frugal guy. I envy those guys who water their lawns, love green lawns. I don't water my lawns. So that's just me. And lastly, I was fired for less. Has anybody been fired? This is quite a commotion. I mean, I debated, should I come here or stay home? And I'm glad I came because after today's meeting, it confirms, in my opinion, in my heart, that bureaucracy is alive and well in the city of Billings. Good night.
Okay, go ahead. Councilmember, Representative, Senator.
You'll get it right eventually. I have a bunch of titles. Senator Chris Friedel. My address is 3116 Rosemont, way out there in Briarwood. I appreciate you guys, and I know what it feels like being on the other side of that chair. But I think there is an issue. I mean, I'm going to look at this pragmatically. I will say that the system did work at once. It did tell me I did have a leak in my toilet, and I paid that bill, and that was fun. But I will say this: I was inquired. In fact, I have the privilege of being a senator, and I have a lot of these guys' personal cell phones, so I can talk. I'm like, hey, there's something going on. What's going on? And I'm getting the inside scoop, and that's why I am where I am. But that being said, I'm confused too, and unfortunately, I did get the information. I understood what they were talking about, and I know it's tough because there's a lot of numbers up there. But I can tell you that I completely understand. Like, I get it, and that's the scary part is I get what they're saying. But the issue I have is I looked at my June bill, and my June bill was less than $90. My bill I just got is $450-something. My average usage per month was under, and I'll go back 3 years. My 2 highest months, if you combine them together, were less than 20 CCFs or 20,000 gallons. The current bill says I almost have 60,000 gallons. Well, I'm like, well, I have a preteen. Maybe she's taking longer showers. That's not it. I just texted my wife. She's like, I wish I can get in the shower. But the fact is the things that have changed in my life is, one, person moved out, so they're not doing as much laundry. They're not using as much showers and things like that. And I'm actually using less water, watering my lawn. If you come out and look at my lawn, it looks like Arizona. It's nice and brown. But the fact is there's something going on. Something is not mathing right. And I'm not trying to point fingers. What I'm trying to say is these people are frustrated. I haven't had this many people show up in city council since I was on in 2015 when we were dealing with another issue that had us there until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning every night. But the fact is there is something wrong, and we need to look at it. We need to find out what's going on. And before pitchforks and tar and feathering happen, we need to figure this out. And you guys are not government officials, just so you're aware. They're not government officials. They are elected officials. They're our shepherd to us sheep. They're here to watch for us, not the other way around. So my honest opinion is you need to figure something out, because if you got me getting emails and text messages as a senator for y'all's issues, then we got a problem. We just need to figure it out. Not blaming anybody. This is an issue we need to figure out, and we need to get to it, and we need to find out fast, because I'm even having a problem. And I'm glad I'm not on auto pay, because I ain't paying this bill until y'all figure it out. And thank God you ain't gonna charge me and knock off my water, because it ain't getting paid until y'all figure it out. Because I can tell you right now, $450. I don't know about you, but that's 4 months worth of services. And at 60,000 gallons, when my highest 2 months is 20,000 or 40,000 or 20,000 gallons, Math ain't mathin'. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment before we close public comment? No one's standing up, no one's coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period. Thank everybody for their comments. Again, a reminder, fill out the form so we make sure we've got your address. Before we come back to council, see if there's anything else before we adjourn, I will ask Debbie and Jennifer, you're not going to be able to answer all those questions, obviously. Hope you've got information to follow up with some of the individuals, but on the chance that something was said that you did want to comment on while people are listening, I want to give you the opportunity. But it's up to you. Is there anything that you wanted to address before I give it back to the city council? And then also we'll look to Chris.
I think the main thing that keeps coming up, both when people come in, show us their bills, and came up tonight, was the chart on the bill. And we do have questions in. That's not produced in our system. That is just a chart that goes on the bill produced by our print stream, by our print vendor. We do have a case opened with them because it's not seeming to pull the right data into that chart. It has nothing to do with how it was billed though. So we need to clarify that. Debbie was writing down the rest of the things. I will say that we didn't decline any kind of communication with anybody asking to look at a spreadsheet. We're very open. Definitely get our contact information at the end of the meeting and we can do that. Is there anything else?
There was a confusion about the bar graphs. And sometimes I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes the graph shows the month where the bill went out, not necessarily the usage period. Is that correct? Can you address these graphs?
There's two things. One is, yes, if you were billed in September, your September will show whatever you were billed for that month. So if you're billed in September and it includes June and July usage, it's showing all in September. But our other issue is our bill print vendor isn't pulling in the previous data always correctly. So we've looked at some of these and it's not accurate in that graph on the chart, on the bill.
Does that mean that somebody could be overcharged?
No.
Okay, why?
Because the bill has nothing to do with that graph. The bill comes from, and the amount charged comes from our billing software, where this is just the print vendor putting a chart on our bill.
Okay. Okay, anything else? And Chris, I want to give you a chance.
The only piece I want to be crystal clear about, I know our staff said, we think it's a good idea. We absolutely, whatever it's called, the cost, no, I don't have a cost for you tonight, or I don't have it, and I don't have a timeline. We made the decision to do this meeting on Thursday morning. Unequivocally, the staff and my recommendation is we do whatever third-party analysis is necessary to regain all of your and our customers' confidence that the bills are accurate. So if that takes 6 months, and if that costs 6 figures relative to the size and scale of our water utility, it's worth every penny, if that's what it takes. If it can be done quicker with less detail to gain that confidence from that third-party vendor, then we will look at that, not just spend money because someone's willing to take it. So just to be clear, there's no question on the staff side. We agree. Some of you recommended we take that step. We need to take that step. That's the right. One of the steps we need to take is get that independent analysis to help regain the confidence in the accuracy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that's a good segue into the final item on this item. But before we do that, Councilmember Joy, are you going to go to this item or someplace else?
Yes.
It is. Okay, well, go ahead then. We're now into this part of our meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, the cost of an audit would be absolutely worth it. Where exactly that audit falls, it seems as though the issue that what we need to look at is, yes, we have the meter reading, and then how is that bill calculated? And this going back and forth between gallons and cubic feet. At the time, I remember we voted on it, it seemed to make sense, but now it seems like it doesn't really make sense, that people can't just look at their meter and know what that number is. And I'm not going to suggest anything, but at the time it made sense, but seeing it play out over maybe these 4 years or 3 years, maybe it doesn't make sense. My question is kind of to the people who are here, and a lot of them already left. Having an independent audit means that we don't know what that conclusion will be. So we don't know, we have an independent consultant or somebody look at that, troubleshoot it, see what issues that come out. If the audit came out that there wasn't a problem, would you be willing to accept that conclusion? Thank you.
I'm sorry, was that, I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't, it was rhetorical.
Okay, that was just a rhetorical question. We're not trying to have that kind of dialogue, but afterwards, if you want to have the conversation, feel free. Okay, other council members on this topic, Councilmember Owen? And then Councilmember Absalom?
So I absolutely think we need the audit. I've told you for close to a week now that I think we need an audit. And I'm a little bit frustrated that we can't actually vote on something tonight. So my suggestion would be that it be as comprehensive as possible, but I would also suggest, per kind of Debbie's recommendation, that we do some actual physical observations with our own staff as well. And maybe that's becomes part of the protocol, that when people are saying, you know, my water usage cannot be what it is, that we offer. Can we come out and physically look at your meter, compare it to Neptune? You know, maybe we can start incorporating that in the protocol. I'd like there to, I'm concerned about what I'm hearing about some folks getting shocked and then they're in auto pay. I know I get my bill maybe 2 or 3 days before the auto pay hits, and I had not contemplated that some people might be getting bills that are so dramatically higher that it would put their rent in jeopardy. And I'm wondering if there isn't a threshold of, like, if your bill is more than X percent what it has previously been, we're going to suspend auto pay and give you an opportunity to review, so that people aren't unable to pay other bills. And I don't know if we can calculate that or if we can be that sophisticated, but it seems like we should take a look at, if we're having really disparate impacts, that we should maybe consider suspending at least some auto pays to make sure we're not causing jeopardy. And then I don't know, Debbie or Jennifer, if you can answer this tonight or if it needs to be answered in the future, but I observe, and I wanted to wait for public comment to ask this question, everyone is residential. Why are we not hearing from businesses who are impacted by this? And I don't mean to suggest that landlords aren't businesses, but where are the restaurants? Where are the, you know, dry cleaners and the car washes? I mean, why are we not hearing from commercial customers? And yeah, I think I would advocate for a very comprehensive audit, but I would also ask our staff to, in parallel to Denise's point, be out spot checking to see if we can check some errors or catch some errors by some physical observations. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll ask staff to comment on some of these questions when we get a chance. Councilor Bernice? Oh, I apologize. You did want to have a question. Okay. Councilor Asperleiter and Councilor Bernice?
So, playing off of Councilwoman Owen's question, I had talked to the owners of the 406 up on 27th Street, and very same question. I asked Debbie to pull the information, because they had agreed, hey, if you want to go through it tonight, go through it tonight. I don't think it's beneficial, after all of the numbers and stuff, to actually go through this tonight, but if staff wants to go through that and can send something to council to say, okay, here's a business. The 406 has no lawn. It's a commercial restaurant and a casino with parking lot. Can go through that and just send that to the council to say, hey, here is what happens on the 406. A prime example of what you're asking. I think that would be useful for us, just to see that from a commercial standpoint. I agree. I think we certainly need to go through an audit, whatever that looks like. I don't think we've had enough time to grasp what an audit looks like. It's easy to say, let's audit it, but we need to understand the full scope of an audit. This in my mind, and I talked to Director Milling about this, looks to me something like auditing from the meter that's in my basement all the way through the bill that I get, and every step of the way, from the meter to the readout on the outside of my house, to the kickback to the system at Public Works, to the conversions, through all the 6 steps and all the different things, and understanding how that works, what works, and how it worked before and how it works with the new system that we have? I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think we do need to operate here with some urgency, but also a little bit of grace in that, hey, we're asking a lot of hard questions that need to be asked, but to expect an answer within the span of 24 to 48 hours, I also don't think is fully realistic for staff to come back with a full-blown system to say, hey, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we're going to scope it out. These are the concerns now that we've heard. Now we have the ability to truly scope that and come back to the council with real scope, real proposed budget, and a list of vendors that we can do that with. So I think we'll get there. I mean, that's certainly where I want to be. My concern and my hope tonight was to understand what Public Works has been doing and hear it presented to all of us. Hear the comments from the customers and then come back and say, okay, now this is what we're going to do to take the steps forward. We have lost the trust of the public. That is a very real thing, and that is where we sit today. And that is not a great position to be in. For us as a council, for Public Works staff, but it's the reality. So now what we do from this point is what matters. We can't fix what we did. We need to learn from it to make sure that we never repeat it again. I appreciate the fact that for the first time tonight, we actually saw some, what I call extreme accountability, whether it is our fault or not. We picked the vendors and the results are the results. Tonight, I don't think we had extreme accountability from our staff. Tonight, I think we saw that for the first time. So now we can build off of that and try to come up with a solution. But we also need to understand as customers that the answer that we get from an audit may well not be the answer that you want either. And if that is the case, then we as a council need to go back and look at what our rate structure is and truly understand the impact of the decisions we've made and revisit that rate structure and understand the implications of changing that rate structure midstream to what we have in our capital improvements plan, what we have on the deferred maintenance list, and how that is going to roll downhill. It's not as easy as saying, yeah, okay, now we're going to lower the rate by $2 and that's going to fix the problem. That is not going to fix the problem without creating a cascading effect into our system. So we need to understand those things. And that's why I ask the public for some grace as we go through this and some patience so that we can make educated decisions and we can do the right thing. I promise you, nobody is trying to do the wrong thing. Nobody. And I know it's easy. I've been called everything but a child of God over the last 10 days. And I get it. I'm frustrated. Everybody's frustrated. But if we can approach this with some grace and some patience, I promise we'll get to the right place. I think you've gotten the assurance from the city staff that we're not going to shut your water off, that we're going to work with you to come to a solution. So give us a chance to figure this out and to make it right. And that would be what I would request of the public. And we'll get there. It might take some time. It ain't going to happen tomorrow. It ain't going to happen next week, but we will get there. So give us some time to get there and let us work through this. It is on the radar for everyone on council at this point. And I promise you it is the top of the list at this stage of the game. So that's the comment that I had. I don't have any suggestions, but I appreciate everybody taking time out of their day and their night away from their families to come here and be present.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Bernice?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what Councilmember Owen says, and I agree mostly what Councilmember Estliner said as well. But I think we have to be concerned. I've been hearing about this for weeks on public social media and seeing things and hearing different exorbitant bills, and it didn't make sense. And I think that I think an audit is definitely needed because as I calculated my own bill, which doesn't use water, by the way, it was difficult for me to calculate my bill. And so I think our public, there's no real way for them to trust the system and the calculations. And truthfully, after seeing the people tonight and hearing what is on social media, it mirrors. It's the same information where the bills that used to be, are 5 to almost 10 times higher than they used to be. It doesn't make sense that the bills are that much. Our rates didn't increase that much. Even if we look at leaks or higher usages, one of the members said, that what does that take into account? More housing, more, we have more population. We're going to use normally more water. So I think there's some information we need to really find out and look in, because just one little digit off in these conversion numbers is going to cause some issues. And I haven't heard we're actually checking those numbers or where that formula is. I would love to see those type of things. So the other thing is concerned, and this is something as I calculated my own bill, I started thinking about this, is, as was mentioned in public comment, and we need to look in this from our legal side of things, is we do approve monthly rates. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but we approve a monthly rate, but we're charging a daily fee. And so I think we need to make sure that the way we're stating our billing is actually accurate, what we're approving on our monthly rates and how we're approving that we're actually charging. Because if it's correct, is what was stated, we're charging 5 extra days for garbage if we are approving monthly rates, but yet only we're billing daily rates. And so we need to be careful that however we're calculating that out, it works out to just be 12 monthly bills. If we take that divided by 365, great. But if we're taking our monthly rates, we're actually adding 5 more days. But I believe this needs to be audited quickly. And the public has been waiting for a very long time for their bills. And I don't think, yes, I think it will happen that we'll get some information, but we need to move this quick and move this on a priority to get this audit going sooner. And I'm also a little disappointed that we didn't have better information on who could be doing these audits, because it's been talked about for quite a bit of time that we are going to be calling for an audit. And I would expect to hear some of that information tonight. But I do appreciate hearing from the public that our staff is doing what they can. It's overwhelming to have so many customers calling into a system that's only designed for so much. I think there was a lot of good public comments tonight about how we can improve that. And I hope that we can get these customers addressed as quickly as possible, because I think there's a lot of abandoned calls of people not just getting frustrated of calling. I've heard that from our constituents, that they just are not wanting to stay on longer than 10 or 20 or 30 minutes waiting on hold. And they try to call back and they just give up and they call me or call someone else. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kennedy, we see you now. So did you have anything for us?
I do. Do you see the hand up there?
I don't, but I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I see it.
Just a couple comments. I agree with Scott and Jennifer on the fact. I think we need to go from the beginning to the end of when the bill finally gets to the customer, of exactly, we need to audit it, and it needs to be someone's other eyes other than the city, so everyone has some trust in it. The other concern that I do have that I'd just like to bring up, if we're going to make major changes in software, in any other department, the one thing that we need to do is make sure that the whole system, it's run through IT, so our IT can have their eyes on it. And the other thing is, and look at the ramifications before we just turn around and change something. And I know this has been talked about since 23. It was voted on in 23 or whatever. The one thing about it is, I think those things all need to be discussed with the council before we ever go and look at whenever you change something this big that affects all the people in the city. So those are my comments. Wish I was there. Love to pass on a little bit of the COVID to everybody. No, I'm just kidding. But thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Kennedy. I'll just make a few comments before we wrap up tonight. First of all, I do appreciate everybody taking their time to come out on this important issue. I would recommend to staff that they try to prioritize the comments that we've heard tonight, because those are now in the public. I mean, that's what people are going to be thinking about. So-and-so said X, what about that? So those are now out there. I think they deserve a certain prioritization. I'm sure the people who are here would appreciate that. But also, they also need to know now that they're public, that there's a chance that their situation could be made public. And I think that's fine. It has been said publicly, so our response also should be public to that, unless somebody has a real concern about that, in which case, please let us know. But second, personally, I'm looking for a pattern of inaccuracy. Councilmember Neese's example, I think, was an excellent one. A number that's inconsistent could have big ramifications. I'm sure you've been looking for that, haven't come up with that. But not just one-offs, but a pattern that would have ramifications through a number of people. That's what I'm looking for, but I haven't seen it yet. And but that's what obviously we need to be on the lookout for. I do support getting a third party. Absolutely, we have to restore trust. We have to get to the bottom of those detailed complaints. I appreciate your focusing, though, in the short term, the last week, on this meeting, dealing with the website, working day and night to get as many answers out there, getting the staff reprioritized from Public Works into dealing with the immediate issues. That had to be the top priority, and I understand that. Going forward, though, we do need to shift as best we can to that finding of a good third-party view. And then lastly, I appreciate some of the other suggestions about full court press on getting staff for more call centers to the extent they can do that without mucking up your system, working on the website, whatever. You've heard this is going to be a priority for the council. So whatever we can do to help, especially on the communication side, whatever, just ask and we'll see what we can do. Anything else, Councilmember Owen?
Mayor, just briefly, I'd forgotten to mention, Chris, I think given that we're likely to continue getting calls from constituents, it would be helpful. I don't know if you conceive of this as a full RFP or simply a quote with a scope of work, but I think whatever it is before it goes out, council should see it, just so that we're all on the same page, that whatever the audit is including is what we're hearing from constituents as well, not to sort of micromanage the process, but just to make sure that we're all aligned on what it is we're trying to accomplish with that audit. So if there's a way you could just circulate that, whatever it is, the scope of work or whatever, to us before it goes out for bid or quote, I would certainly appreciate that.
Yes, and what I'm thinking, as you communicated, I think it's the scope that we want to make sure. When we understand the scale of the costs, we can determine whether it's within my authority on the cost side. If it's over that, we'll have to do an RFP. So, but the scope, no matter what the cost is, make sure you guys get your eyes on it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Troy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In terms of communication, this is an idea that I had. I'm not sure it's how good it is, but anyway, I was really thinking maybe we need to speak to some of the businesses in town, particularly the plumbers, to get out correct information. Because a constituent concern that I had, they detailed their situation, and I want to make sure that, I think it's important for us to get correct information to people who are doing things that may be related to people's water, so that they're not telling their customers incorrect information. And I don't know if that's possible, but that's absolutely what I've heard from constituents. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, everybody. I think we'll call that a wrap on item number 1. Chris, anything in the way of highlighting upcoming agenda items that you have for us?
Oh, sorry. I actually shouldn't have put that on the agenda. Just this was the topic, so.
Okay, and council discussion is also on the topic or on the agenda. Don't see any hands up on that. Any public comment on anything that was not on our agenda tonight before we adjourn? If it's not on our agenda, go ahead.
When you talk about an audit, it would be great if you could get some of the public involved, interested public to help your audit make more.
We appreciate that point. It obviously was relevant to this, but that's a good point. Thank you very much. We'll try to keep the public up to date on that whole process as best we can. Very good. Then, council, I appreciate your time. Public, I appreciate everybody coming tonight and giving your input. Be sure to fill out that form if you haven't already. Thanks very much. We're adjourned. And sorry we went over.